Welcome back to the Rodcast, Tuesday edition of the Rodcast. We got a lot of football to talk about, of course. We'll get into the Monday night football game. We'll talk about Lamar Jackson and his extraordinary start to the season. Actually, having a better start to this season than his last MVP campaign last season. We'll talk about it. We'll get into some other NFL news, notes, and nuggets. Got some troubling news, I guess some troubling notes, I should say, to give you about the Texans. We'll get into that coming up next hour. We'll also talk Texas football. We'll get into Steve Sarkisian's Monday media availability. We're going to hear from Steve Sarkisian. My man Patrick chopped up some of that audio, so we'll go behind the burnt orange curtain next segment and talk some Texas football. Also, I got my second rewatch done of the Texas Georgia game, so we'll get into that and give you some of my thoughts and some of the things that I found, some of my insights that I found given a rewatch of the Texas Georgia game. We'll also get into your usual favorites on the show. We got what the facts, what the stats. We got who said that. We got all of the great items we usually have. Rod's rant of the day. We also will get into, of course, the topic for the big fat poll of the day. So we are jam packed on a Tuesday. Before we do any of that, let's introduce you to the rest of the crew. He's one of the hardest working members of the ARN family. Got a hustler spirit, period. Not sure what he's paid, but pretty damn sure the man is underpaid. Ain't no 401k for this hustler, and he's a hustle man of many talents. It's our friend, co-host, and neighbor. It is Patrick Davis, y'all. What's going on, Patrick? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing all right on a Tuesday morning, ready to get going. Watched some football. That was it was a little bit easier to watch football on a Monday than it was on Sunday. So easing back into it, and then get the NBA season actually starts tonight, which feels like it's way too early for that, but it is. Actually,
that's crazy.
Starts tonight.
It feels like it always start. It feels like that feel real early for some reason. I don't know.
It feels early. I think it's because it has not gotten cold yet, and it feels like NBA should be more winter and fall, and it feels like it's still kind of summerish here in town. But it is start. Texas basketball starts November 4th, so we're only a couple of weeks away from Texas basketball as well. But it's still dead right in football season. So I'll be watching it, but we won't be talking about it a lot here on the show.
Keep us updated, man. Keep us updated for those who are paying no attention at all until Christmas time.
Exactly. Let me introduce you my co-host. He's a proud alumni of DBU. He's got more papers than Dunder Mifflin and watches more film than Siskel and Ebert. He is the new Rod Father of Boston Sports Radio, Mr. Rod Babers.
I appreciate the intro as always. And we'll get into a lot of different topics, of course, on the show. I want to talk some Texas football. I did get a chance to rewatch. I hadn't got a chance to rewatch the game because, everything's been going on. It's been a crazy weekend. So I did get a chance to rewatch the game yesterday. So I do have some thoughts. And I want to rewatch. Never as bad as you thought. It's never as good as you thought. So we'll get some details about that. Probably when we go into Rod's rant because I do want to hear from Steve Sarkisian from his Monday media availability and get to some of his thoughts when we go behind the burnt orange curtain. So that's probably how that's going to work. We'll talk Monday night football, of course, coming up here and talk some NFL. I said last week, the only reason Lamar Jackson won't win the MVP the way he's playing right now is because fatigue. Because he's already won it twice and he won it last year. And it's like, okay, well, we can't just keep giving it to Lamar Jackson. And it's like the river, because we saw this. The NBA, this happened a couple of times, right? This happened when Russell Westbrook won the MVP. And basically the next year, he was basically doing something very similar. I think he had almost better numbers the next year when it comes to the triple-double. But we had already seen it already. So there was nothing special or spectacular about it. I feel like we're at that point with Lamar Jackson, even though it looks like he is statistically having a better start to the season than he did last year. And it looks like he is going to surpass all of his accomplishments from last year. If there's somebody else who's close, I think they'll give it to them just because of fatigue. But I said it last week. Right now, Lamar Jackson is playing better than his MVP season. And I don't know anybody else who's playing better. I actually said I have to do the research and find out if there's been an MVP and Offensive Player of the Year on the same team, because that's what it's looking like for the Ravens right now. Because Derrick Henry's leading the league in rushing, and it ain't even close. Actually, he's leading the league in rushing by a little bit of a large margin, considering how old Derrick Henry is, and with a new team and Lamar Jackson, as I pointed out, I think Lamar Jackson right now is your leader in passer rating. I think he's second in QBR, if I'm not mistaken, after last night. I mean, he's just having a spectacular season. Yeah, right now he is second in QBR, and then he is leading the league in passer rating. Jared Goff is second. We talked about Jared Goff too. He's second in passer rating. I think like right now, Lamar Jackson, Jared Goff are your two MVP front runners right now in the league.
Yeah,
it's got to be.
And I mean,
even though I know Patrick Mahomes has the best odds, I get it. But talking about just guys and what they've accomplished during the season and what kind of track they're on. Jaden Daniels could be in the conversation too. They'll never give it to a rookie, so there's no point in even talking about it. That's why I keep bringing up the fact that the fatigue factor is gonna hurt Lamar Jackson because they're not gonna want to give it to him again. But man, it's gonna be hard to deny him if he keeps playing like this. It's gonna be tough to be able to deny him another MVP award, which would be just absolutely insane. Like that would be crazy. So I don't know how this season is going to play out. I don't know if somebody else is going to emerge. Patrick Mahomes may turn it around. If the Chiefs go undefeated, you'd have to put him in that conversation. But I'm telling you, Lamar Jackson right now, guys, it's unbelievable. He's only got 2 interceptions. And guys, I told you those 2 interceptions, they were deflected passes off the hands of his wide receivers. they were in his hands, and then those guys dropped. So they actually aren't even his fault. Those 2 interceptions he has on the season. And the 15 passing touchdowns. I think he's got 2 rushing touchdowns too. He is in rushing yards. He's 11th in rushing yards. Just got bumped right outside the top 10. But he's got 2 rushing touchdowns, so 17 total. Lamar Jackson, man, it's looking. And the best thing about this offense that he's in is right now he doesn't have to carry the burden of the running game. They can run the ball without Lamar Jackson being the featured main element of the running game.
Yeah, they don't have to run as many designed runs.
Yeah, like he's just like a complementary element of the running game now.
Yeah.
They hadn't had that.
No.
Usually he's the main dish of the running game, right? He's the main course. Now he's just the mashed potatoes on the side. You know what I mean? A little gravy on the side when they need him. They got Derrick Henry now who can be the main course. Can be that workhorse back if they need it. And this is something new. There are a lot of new elements. Obviously, the Todd Monken spread passing game. That's what won him the MVP award last year. But now you added Derrick Henry to the mix. And now you have, like I said, a true featured element in the run game. And they haven't really had that for Lamar Jackson in some time. It was always, but you be a fool not to feature him in the running game and make him a focal point of it, but to evolve him into more of a pocket passing quarterback, he needs something else. He needs another and I think a really consistent running game with him added to his obviously dual threat ability, but he needs another consistent presence in the running game. And now they have in Derrick Henry. I will admit it looks like it could take down Kansas City. Could it? I don't know. It looks like it could take down Kansas City. Last year, they thought I think they were moving toward that model, and they were close. And maybe this Derrick Henry puts them over the top. It could be the case.
Yeah, I think that the question is, can those guys both be able to do this in a few months? When it comes down to it, is Derrick Henry still going to have those legs? Is Lamar Jackson still going to be healthy enough to go put that out? And can you put it together? Then, also you got to be healthy in that wide receiver room because they just don't have a lot of options. It's really Zay Flowers, and Bateman had a decent game last night as well, had some big catches, but they don't have a ton of receiver love and receivers that they want to get to. Mark Andrews had his best game of the season probably last night as well.
Yeah.
So you get him in there, but you have to be able to find those guys that they're going to be able to go to in the passing game. But yeah, if they stay healthy, then that's going to be a team that you may say this is going to be hard to beat.
Yeah, like I said, Kansas City is a team that everybody's got to be measuring themselves up against. I mean, right now they are the standard, and I said right now it looks like this Baltimore model, that this recipe could threaten the Kansas City Chiefs. But hey, man, I still got to see somebody do it. Got to see somebody take down Mahomes so I can believe it. Because if I see it with my own eyes, then I'll believe it. But it doesn't happen very often. So we'll get. So I got another stat about Lamar Jackson and really how this year you really could break a kind of historic trend that he's been on. This historic pace he's been on. I'll get into that a little bit later on in the show. We'll also get to a story about Quinn Ewers that Really had a lot of Longhorn fans upset last night. Some Longhorn fans upset. Hell, maybe some Longhorn fans were actually celebrating this this story that turned out not to be a story. Turns out it was fake news. It was. We'll get into it, but we'll get into that fake news that actually went viral among Longhorn fans last night. That has to do with Quinn Ewers and his status as the Longhorn starting quarterback. We'll get to that on the other side. But first, it's time for those Horn headlines. So let's get updated. Let's get educated. Let's get informed with all the top stories of the day first with my man Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. The NBA season tips off tonight with the Knicks taking on the Celtics and the Timberwolves facing the Lakers. Last season's NBA champions will see the first look at the new Knicks lineup with the additions of Mikal Bridges and Karl Anthony Towns, while the Timberwolves will have their new lineup with Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo taking on LeBron and the Lakers. And in the NFL, the Ravens outpaced the Buccaneers 41-31 with Lamar Jackson throwing for 5 touchdowns and Derrick Henry adding 169 yards on the ground on 15 carries. The Buccaneers fear they have lost Chris Godwin for the season with a dislocated ankle, while there is no timetable for Mike Evans' return, who also left the game with a hamstring injury. And the Arizona Cardinals hit a last-second field goal to top the Chargers 17-15 in a game where the Chargers could not get in the end zone, scoring all of their points off of 5 Cameron Dicker field goals. And that is your Horn headlines.
Thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. Yeah, so last night, 247 Sports. I'm not sure, I'm not sure what happened, but they put out a post on their Instagram, and it has since been deleted, of course. That said Texas QB Quinn Ewers will sit out the rest of the season to prepare for the NFL draft. It was deleted within minutes, I don't know exactly, but it was deleted very quickly.
Yeah.
And then they claimed, and they have said, several sources now have said that they were hacked last night. And that was the reason that they posted that story. Quinn Ewers himself was actually, I think, kind of mocked it as well via Instagram. So it's not true, but it's fake news. But it caused a lot of Longhorn fans momentary panic.
Yes,
that Quinn Ewers had decided, or that the news had broke that Quinn Ewers was going to forego the rest of his eligibility and go to NFL draft. Not true, fake news. Quinn, he did not go to he was not available for the media at the player availabilities, and I know some people were curious about that because usually on Mondays he is. I just think that's a result of the coaches probably wanting to safeguard him from the media storm and have questions, and just give him some time to kind of get back into the groove, start practicing, lick his wounds a little bit, get his swagger back, get his confidence back. They'll probably put him out there, with player availability maybe again next week after the Vanderbilt game. The hope is probably that he's going to play much better than he has played the last couple of weeks, but it is fake news. And 247 Sports, they did claim that they were hacked as a result. Yeah, that's just me. That's I don't know whoever hacked them and whoever thought that was funny, but or if they weren't indeed hacked, and that's just what they threw out there. That is the go-to claim when you screw up any type of social media post or anything. You do just claim you're hacked, and then it does seem to be kind of a blanket excuse that everybody accepts. Like we don't want to research. Could be, I guess you can't. So it's like I was hacked. It's like, okay, you can put anything, you can post anything pretty much, and just delete it a little bit later and be like, nah, I was hacked.
No, it was like hacked. Yeah, I think the one that was recent was like, I think it was Usher. That was like,
what did he do?
Basically everything got deleted off of one of his socials.
Oh, okay.
And then it came back, and he was like, "Oh, we got it all back," but then all the stuff about Diddy was gone on it. Oh, and then he was like, "I got hacked. We got the stuff back." And they're like, "No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You were trying to wipe it, but you didn't just want to wipe it. So you tried to do it."
Diddy. How your Diddy stuff was going? So that the hacker was a Diddy fan, just trying to be.
I don't know. Well, no, it's just like they were like,
no, I know. Yeah. He definitely had a team that they were like, hey, it'll be easier if we can just wipe the whole thing, and then we can repost with our algorithm, and it will take out all the Diddy stuff. Oh man, that's great. Yeah, he wasn't the only one trying to do that. No. I mean, if you do it one at a time, it is suspicious.
Exactly.
You just start deleting all your. That's a little suspicious. But listen, it's understandable. Guys, if you want to delete your Diddy pictures, it's all good. You don't need an excuse. Everybody's like, oh, yeah, I get why you want to delete the Diddy pictures. Go right ahead. You should. Matter of fact, that should be the decent thing to do. I'm deleting Diddy. No Diddy, deleting Diddy. It's all good. Why you got to hide that?
No, but I'm back on Quinn. But that was, I liked what Joe Cook's response to it was basically he's like, guys, if you see something like that and there's no source on it, believe me, whoever reported one of the biggest news stories in college football is going to put their name on it.
Very true.
It's like there's no way you're reporting this gigantic story in college football and don't take credit.
That's true. So he should have hacked like an actual person instead of like the 247 Sports.
It would have had someone's name on it or something.
Somebody like
first reported was me.
Pete Thamel. You should have hacked like somebody big time, and then should have hacked Joe Cook. He's pretty reliable.
Exactly.
You hack, you know what I mean? Then people are like, whoa, that's a good point. I know it definitely was somebody playing some type of joke, but I mean, just so you know, if you ever get in trouble with your social media, delete it immediately and just say you were hacked, and you'll be fine. Nobody will ask any questions. It's one of those things where we just accept that excuse. Nobody wants to know anything about it, and everybody just assumes, that sucks. I've not been hacked yet. I don't know. Have you ever been hacked? My people have like done like stolen like my identity and stuff like that. I'm talking about social media hacking.
Yeah.
Like I've actually had people like somebody, use my credit card in some, far away place, in California when I'm not there or something. I've had some stuff like that and had to get that.
I don't think I've ever had enough social media following for anybody to want to hack me.
I've never been hacked like that either.
I'm sure I don't want to bring it upon myself either, but
no, I'm not trying to ask somebody to hack me either. So if you're out there and you have hacking ability, I'm not saying I want to be hacked. I'm just saying it's never happened to me. But like I said, if I ever have an issue on social media, I'm just telling you right now, that's the excuse I'm using because everybody uses it. All right, there you go. So Texas fans, no need to panic. There's fake news. Quinn Ewers is the starting quarterback at the University of Texas. Matter of fact, we'll hear from Sark talking about that, his Monday media availability. We'll get into that a little bit later. I did get a chance to watch the Texas-Georgia game again because I hadn't gotten a chance to watch it. I had to obviously watch it live, did the in-game live watch with our friends over at On Texas, and hadn't gotten a chance to watch because the game was so late, and hell, I had to work Monday and worked all weekend long out of that point, so I just hadn't had the time. So I went back and rewatched it yesterday in pieces, and I got to tell you, one thing I will say that I think maybe there was too much. And my man D always said this: the quarterbacks get all the girls and they get all the grief, right? You get all the blame, but you're gonna get all the glory too. I do think it might have been too much blame and too much criticism on Quinn Ewers. Now going back and looking at it, because and shout out to because somebody gave me some clips of the All-22, so I got a chance to look at it from the coach's view. And I'll get into it a little bit more in Rod's rant, but the amount of mixing up coverages, mixing up fronts that you saw Kirby Smart do, I mean, that was a different picture for Quinn pre-snap and post-snap consistently. If the middle of the field was open pre-snap, it's going to be closed post-snap. If it was closed pre-snap, it's going to be open post. I mean, he was moving, mixing and matching. The fronts, you can see him stemming. They was going from an odd front to a 6-man front. They got pressure with every type of blitz. I mean, they got pressure with 3-man. They got pressure with 4-man. They got pressure with 5-man blitz. They got pressure with a 0 blitz. I mean, it was a masterclass. Just straight up. It was a straight up masterclass, man. And the receivers, I'll admit too, receivers, they weren't creating a ton of separation. There weren't a lot of times where they had a lot of separation down the field. And, I think ultimately for Quinn, he was holding on to the ball, trying to process some of this stuff that was going on. And that's the wrong team to have indecision against. And that's basically what all they were trying to cause was indecision in Quinn's game. And they did. And Quinn looked insecure and indecisive, and he held on to the ball. And not only with the schematic advantage, the schematic masterclass that Kirby Smart put on, they just straight up whipped Texas in one-on-ones too. I mean, a one-on-one, it was a one-on-one, your guy versus their guy. A lot of times they just whipped Texas. Nothing wrong with that too. That happens. It's just part of the game. And they were well prepared. I mean, they were keying in on some of Texas tendencies, and like some of the stuff that we all kind of know about Texas. And I thought they keyed in on some of the tendencies really, really well. And in terms of attacking the screen game for Texas, knowing that when Texas shifts to empty, a lot of times they're not doing it to get downfield. They're doing it because they want to get to another screen. They keyed in on the quick game for Texas, and they did a really good job with disguise. All the pieces. That's why a lot of the big plays were because of disguise. Quinn didn't notice the cornerback playing bump and run, and that the cornerback blitzed because he held the disguise to the very last second. That was a strip sack, but the interception was also based on disguise, right? The cornerback with his bail coverage made it seem as if he was going to carry Gunnar Helm on that 9 route. Gunnar Helm was running deep, but he didn't. They were playing cover 2. It made it seem like that's their zone. He was going to be dropping back in the zone. Now, actually, he's ended up breaking down and jumping that quick out route by Matthew Golden, who was at the number 2 receiver. And that was just brilliant disguise. Quinn thought they were going to be in 2-man probably because they've been playing a lot of 2-man the whole game with 2 deep safeties playing like underneath. They call it man under. So you can jump a lot of routes, and you can play underneath the receiver because you got help over the top. And they've been playing a lot of 2-man. Well, and that since they switched it, they basically played regular cover 2, allowed that cornerback to jump any underneath route. But the cornerback did a great job in disguising it. And here's also one of the plays where you look at where it seems like, oh, that's all on Quinn. Quinn's got to see that. Quinn does have to see it. That's on Quinn. That's part of his responsibility as a quarterback, right? To be able to process those things. But Gunnar Helm could have helped him out a lot in that situation, right? Go watch Gunnar Helm's route. It's a very, it's a lackadaisical route, right? If he targets the outside shoulder of that cornerback, or tries to get to the outside leverage of that cornerback can't come straight downhill and attack that number 2 receiver and jump that out route by Matthew Golden. He can't. He'd have to go around Gunnar Helm, or have to go through Gunnar Helm to do it. And either way, he ain't gonna be able to jump that route. But Gunnar Helm just kind of, in a very casual way goes up the field, and it shouldn't have been casual. He should have been attacking that corner, like going right at him, like right at that back shoulder, and trying to get that corner almost to turn and respect his 9 route. The corner did it, and if the corner was actually going to run with him, then it would have clarified the picture for his quarterback. But if he'd attack that, that shoulder, if he'd attacked that back shoulder, he'd have forced that corner to have to go through him to get to the football. It didn't happen that way, but that's a little small detail, but it would have made a huge difference. And those little plays were all throughout the game. Those little details that Texas missed on, and it ended up being a huge detriment to them. It was a small thing that ended up turning into a big thing. And that happened all throughout the game against Georgia. Small, little tiny details that ended up being a huge detriment because Texas missed the detail. And then the whole damn play blew up. And there were a lot of those. And Sark even said that the fumble, the strip sack, but the cornerback blitz, he said it wasn't Quinn's fault. I said, I don't know all the protections. He said it wasn't Quinn's fault. He said that was a breakdown in protection. Mm-hmm. That they should have been responsible for the backside blitz there. Okay, so that wasn't on Quinn. So when you go back and start watching it, and then you hear, Sark give you a little bit of clarification on some of the plays, you realize, like, okay, man, maybe Quinn wasn't as bad as I thought in terms of Quinn's performance, because it was more overall breakdown on the offense and a masterclass by Georgia in their kind of pre-snap disguise and their mixing of coverages and fronts. It was, like I said, it to me put out a blueprint. Now everybody cannot. That's the beauty of it. Nobody can really replicate that blueprint because they don't have the dogs and they don't have the players that Georgia does. Right? They don't have Jalen Walker. They don't have Mikael Williams. They don't have 5 stars at every level of their defense. They don't have Kirby Smart. I think one thing you will get is teams trying to take some of the concepts and replicate some of those. You'll get some stemming and some movement on the front. You'll probably get more mixing of coverages pre-snap and post-snap against Texas, you'll probably get a lot more. I think you'll probably get a lot more, like I said, pre-snap movement on the front seven, just to try to see if you can confuse the blocking schemes, mugging linebackers in the B gap. You'll probably get some of that, but they don't have the athletes to be able to make you pay ultimately like Georgia did, and to win the one-on-ones the way Georgia did. I mean, Georgia was winning one-on-ones across the board. And, I think for Texas, that's why you got to go back to kind of square one. O-line had a bad game. Your quarterbacks had a bad game. But now going back and looking at it, wide receivers didn't do much. Like they didn't do much either. There was not much separation created downfield on some of those routes that I think Quinn was fixated and waiting for. So it's something. I think it's a humbling moment for Texas offense, because we all thought if anything was going to be exposed, it was going to be the defense. The defense was not exposed. Offense was exposed. That's the troubling thing coming out of the rewatch for me. It's like, so the offense actually may have the real issues, like the in terms of the glaring deficiencies. And you're like, where are those deficiencies? Well, they're right now against elite teams. It seems like Texas offense doesn't really have rhythm. Right? Have you noticed that? It was tough. It was even against Oklahoma. Texas didn't really get into a rhythm in the offense. I'm about the passing game syncing up with the running game. They don't seem to have that. That's one of those, I think, traits of a Sark offense that we've all grown accustomed to. The offense doesn't have rhythm right now. It's all, they're making some plays, but it seems to be, right, it just seems to be discombobulated a little bit. There is no, like I said, true rhythm and true synchronicity to the offense. It's missing that. And that could be the quarterback, could just be the offensive line, pass protection, the running game. Like none of it's really, working together. There isn't a kind of symbiotic like relationship between the passing game and the running game right now. And for Sark, that's always been key. That's why his play action game, the RPO game, it all, meshes and mixes so well. It's not right now. Not in the last 2 weeks, but you have played really good defenses.
No, I think there may be something to be said about, that this is a somewhat different thing and going to the SEC from the Big 12, that a lot of Big 12 teams play similar defenses, that you're used to. Okay, we can find a rhythm because week after week we're playing the same basic concept of defense. So we're able to stick the guys out there. And if a Jane Blue works in this, Jane Blue works week 1, week 2, week 3, and week 4. And you go in the SEC and all these different types of defense come out and you go, well, now he may work on week 2, but he's not going to work in week 3. And then we go back to week 5, but it kind of takes away where Gunnar Helm is going to be great one week, but Isaiah Bond, your guy, next week. And then now we got to look over and Ryan Wingo, his skills are going to show out. Okay, now we got to run the ball against this team. And it changes up what you're doing because these teams there's so much variety in what the teams do defensively that you're having to kind of constantly change your game plan to go against their weaknesses. And you don't necessarily have that one major strength where you just say, offensively, we do this, and I don't care what you put out there, this will work. And yeah. I don't know if they have that this year where, that would be your Bijan Robinson type guy. They go, look, we can give the ball to Bijan. He's going to get a 6-7 yard. We're fine. And without that, you go, we have tons of options. So we can attack whatever your weakness is, we can attack it, but we have to find it. And you went up against a Georgia team that it was just really hard to find that weakness.
Yeah, you really didn't find much success until that third quarter. You found some things that worked. We'll get into that too a little bit in Rod's rant. But yeah, that's one thing I'm starting to know. That's a great point though, Patrick. I agree with you. When you think about it, honestly, and it's mostly because you had Arch Manning making his second start versus Mississippi State. So that could have been, but the offense was making plays in that game. But, like I said, I don't know if it had really a rhythm until like maybe late in the game.
Yeah.
Right. Because remember, even early on, Texas didn't start to separate from Mississippi State until late in that matchup. So, yeah, I think that's really what I think the offense may be missing. But I think your point is valid that in the Big 12, I want to say last season, you faced teams that ran the 3-high safety look on you, 3-high defense, probably in maybe 6, 7, or 8-year games. You know what I mean? Like that's to your point about there being a very kind of similar kind of feel and philosophy to the defenses in the Big 12 as opposed to in the SEC. There's a lot more variety and a lot more individualistic like traits and like defensive identities. You know, I mean, in the SEC, as opposed to everybody trying to say, no, we have changed our defensive strategy to really fit the ecosystem of the Big 12, and everybody has really kind of jumped on that evolutionary adaptation. In the SEC, it doesn't seem that that's the case. Like that, they're not really. These defenses are not necessarily similar. I'm with you on that in the way they attack offenses. It's very different. Yeah. Because Oklahoma's very different than Georgia.
And that was, I mean, it's a thing that Sark knew about the offenses in the SEC, because he said that's why we need so much, change and variety especially in our secondary, that we need all these players that can do different things, because we're going to have to kind of shapeshift throughout the season to fit against what these different offenses do. And so they were prepared for it more defensively. And I think they're prepared for it offensively too, but it takes away that part that you're used to of a rhythm where, when we say you're going to have 6 different receivers and you don't know who the running back is going to be in which game, who's going to play better and all those things, it kind of takes that away because which player's skill set fits against this defense.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think, like I said, I agree with your point about the variety of the defenses in the SEC and Texas they just have to be malleable. And right now, I don't know if they've found the perfect kind of compromise between what they want to be and what they need to be right now on offense. And that's what they're struggling with right now. We'll see. I mean, they got to go to Vandy, and maybe Vandy is kind of where they find that rhythm we're talking about. All right, we'll get to some more Texas football because we're going to go, don't throw this out there too. My prediction, Texas is what now, 7 games into the season. I've already hit my Blackstradamus prediction for the season. Remember I told you guys that you have a different leading receiver in like half the games this year? I believe you've already getting close to hitting it because your leading receiver in this one was Matthew Golden. Oh. So you've had Golden, Moore, Bond, Helm, and Wingo. Right? So basically like you're already close to close to the goal, right? I believe in 7 games you've had 5 different leading receivers, I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Helm has done it twice.
Yeah, because we've had 4 because we asked the question. So 4, and then we asked the question of who would be the 5th.
It's a big.
So we're now at 5, yeah.
You had Golden, Bond, Wingo, Helm, and you had Moore. That's crazy. That's wild. That's unbelievable. So getting back to our point though about the offense and how it doesn't seem to have a rhythm to it at times, that is part of the challenge, as Patrick just brought up too. Like that's part of it. It gets I don't even think Texas knows week to week who the guy's gonna be. They really just kind of figure it's all about what the defense is trying to take away, and how the defense is trying to attack you and game plan for you. And then Texas during the game is like, okay, well, Golden's the guy.
No, I mean, what has Sark said over and over again? It's like the ball's going to find you, and the ball will find you, and that's kind of what this offense has been: is the ball will find you, and that's what we saw against Georgia. Is the ball didn't find anybody?
Yeah, it did. Gunnar Helm is who it found. Gunnar Helm had found
half.
a lot.
Yeah.
He's
I mean, didn't find anybody in the first half,
but 7 for 48. You're right. That is fascinating. That I can't think of a Texas offense that had that much variety in it. It's been a long time. I don't think I've ever covered a Texas team or played on one that had that much variety in the passing game. And right now I don't know if it's benefiting the offense as much as it should. Because, like I said, I think it does contribute to the lack of it finding a true rhythm because there are players that get you in a rhythm.
Yeah.
There are players that Sark used to go, all right, X-Man, get us in a rhythm, baby. That's you. Bijan, like you said, get us in a rhythm, Bijan, let's go. They don't really have a player that can get them in a rhythm. They go, all right, now this guy, he has kind of gotten us, this is the start to the drive or, the identity of our offense now. We can funnel it through this player, and then that'll lead us to, obviously, more and more success, like on the drive. I don't know if they really have that person right now. Bond, maybe he was it, and Bond went out of the game. But he only had 2 receptions for 11 yards. So I don't know if he's just not healthy. But yeah, we'll talk about that more when we go into Rod's rant. The next segment, let's hear from Steve Sarkisian about Texas' upcoming opponent, the Vanderbilt Commodores. We'll also get into Texas, Georgia a little bit more, but we'll start looking ahead here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. Let's talk about my friend, Dr. Greg Eckert. He can be your friend as well, but you definitely want him to be your dentist. He's the best dentist in Austin. I owe him and his team a huge debt of gratitude. I initially went there just for a routine cleaning and checkup, but then I found, and they found, that my wisdom teeth were growing in sideways, causing all types of issues. I was on the verge of a disastrous situation impacting my molars. It was crazy, but it turns out I was in the best possible hands. Dr. Eckert and his team, they made sure that I was knowledgeable and informed about the process. They got the procedure scheduled, got everything done. I was back at work within a couple of days, and thanks to Dr. Eckert and his team, my dental health and dental hygiene have never been better. And they can do the same for you. Hopefully for you, it's not as serious as having all of your wisdom teeth extracted, but hopefully for you, it's pretty simple. But if it is something serious, you're in great hands with Dr. Eckert and his team. Any general dentistry, teeth whitening, dentures, porcelain crowns, veneers, dental implants, full mouth reconstruction, even a root canal therapy, whatever it takes to ensure you're getting the best quality dental care available. That's what Dr. Eckert and his team are all about. And right now, because of their intellectual curiosity, right now they have the ability to give you a brand new smile in just 1 day. Permanently secure at your dental implants. You'll spend no time without teeth. You'll get temporary fixtures until they can put your permanent smile, and you'll smile again with confidence and eat freely without pain or discomfort. We're talking about a lifelike permanent solution. So if you've been told your teeth need to be replaced, don't freak out. It's okay. Just learn about this revolutionary alternative to dentures from Dr. Eckert and his team. It sounds like it's too good to be true. It's not. It's just Dr. U. It's a complimentary consultation, so you got nothing to lose, but you got everything to gain, because a confident smile can truly change your life. And Dr. Eckert and his team, they want to change your life for the better. They did the same for me. They can do it for you. So give them a call today, 512-345-3166, or visit dreckert.com. And remember, you got those benefits that are going to run out at the end of the year. You don't want to lose those. You want to use those. And Dr. Eckert and his team can show you exactly how to do it to benefit you. That's dreckert.com, DRUECKERT.com. All right. Let's hear from Steve Sarkisian talking about the upcoming game versus Vanderbilt, but also he talks a little bit about Texas, Georgia. But also, I think most of the conversation, at least the early questions, were about Quinn Ewers and his status with the team. Here is Sark initially talking about Quinn's struggles and what he thinks about Quinn's last couple of games and the slow start that the starting quarterback has had.
Well, I think a couple things. I think Quinn definitely can play better. We got to continue to work his pocket presence and making sure that he's capitalizing on the premier looks when we get them, why we're calling plays and we get those shots to take them. But I also think we need to play better around him. Our offense isn't about one player playing well. It's about all 11 playing well. And I don't think we've been at our best from a totality standpoint. So yes, Quinn needs to play better. And I believe that he will. I thought he played a better second half. Again, the game was a little bit out of whack, but I think we need to be better around him as well. Up front, the run game, receivers creating separation, getting open, all that needs to improve.
Yeah, I agree with him, actually. When I went back and rewatched it, like I said, Texas lost a lot of one-on-ones across the board. When there were one-on-one situations, they lost those too. Quinn gets going to get most of the blame because the quarterback, and man, you make the big bucks, so you get all the blame, but you get all the girls, so you get all the grief. But there were very few opportunities where wide receivers were creating a lot of separation. Offensive line didn't give him a ton of time. Even as the small things like players attacking the right leverage would have helped out, Quinn Ewers a little bit. And sometimes of them, the route running and how they were attacking that Georgia defense downfield. So they didn't do him any favors. And Quinn ultimately, I think, paid the price because he's the one that got benched. Speaking of, here's Sark when he was asked about Quinn and having to pull Quinn and bench him during that game and let Arch get in a couple of drives. Here is Sark saying that that's not really a concern for Quinn right now.
Well, I think it's him understanding that we have confidence and belief in him. Again, we were very clear of why we made that move at the end of the second quarter of him kind of recalibrating, him getting refocused, giving him a chance to get into the locker room so that we could visit. And again, I thought it was an effective move for him, for us as a team. But we got a ton of respect for Quinn, a ton of confidence in Quinn. I think he's going to come out and play really good football for us here the second half of the season.
I certainly hope so. We all know it's in Quinn and what he's capable of, but there are some people wondering, because of the regression that we've seen from Quinn, is Quinn still dealing with an injury? I mean, that would actually explain a lot, and it would be, to me, it would make sense because it would track and align with the regression that we have seen from Quinn the last couple of weeks. But Sark was asked straight up, "Is Quinn hurt?" Here's what Sark had to say.
No, I don't think it's impacted him at all. I really think he's healthy and feels good about it. So is he 100%? I don't know. Is anybody on our team 100%, going into week 8? Probably not. Everybody's got something right now.
Okay. So he's putting it to bed. I mean, I know people threw out that potential theory that I think he's still hurt and they're battling through the injury. Sark is saying that's not the case. So there'll be some other reason. Maybe it's a mental block associated with the injury. Maybe he is still favoring it because he doesn't want to re-injure it. Who knows? But the O-line has got to protect him better, no matter what the case is, and no matter what his status is and what his injury status is. They got to protect him better because versus Georgia, 28 individual pressures allowed by the Texas offensive line. That is the most by any Sark, Kyle Flood coached O-line since they've been here at Texas. So they got to figure some things out. And yeah, first time we've seen Kelvin Banks just get straight up beat. You don't really see that very often, but that's how good that Georgia defensive front was. So here's Sark talking about the improvements that he needs to see from the offensive line this week.
Yeah, it was a few different things happened. The first sack, not the first sack, but the sack fumble on the corner blitz was a communication error at the line of scrimmage. Quinn thought he was protected on the backside. Clearly he wasn't. So for all the Monday morning quarterbacks who said Quinn was late with the ball, that was incorrect. All right. He thought he was protected and he wasn't. Okay. We have another one where we don't block a Mike linebacker coming off the edge. That was a running back issue. We have another one where a running back gets ran over through the A gap and we all want Quinn to step up. but the running back's on his back. He can't step up, and then Kelvin ends up giving up some pressure. We have another one where Cam loses his, kind of fundamental technique and gets wiped, and we give up a sack there. So it was kind of a variety of things, and that's my point. It's not this one thing. Hey, this guy just got his butt kicked. That's not really what happened. We dropped back 40 some odd times in the game, right? And so one guy, when you play tackle, you may have 44 really good reps, but those two you got beat on, right, can rear their ugly head. And that's the life of being a tackle. That's the life of being a DB. You can play great all game and give up one deep ball, and boy, he didn't have a great game. And so we've got to find a level of consistency. We've got to find a level of balance. And then we need to play as a cohesive unit on the offensive side of the ball. And that starts up front for us.
I'm glad he said the DB. So I was about to say, hey, it's the life of a DB. I remember that life. Like, hey, man, I actually played great the entire game. And all the fans remember is the one time Robbie got beat on third down. They give up the first down. It's like, no, they'll watch the whole game. Played really well. But that is the life of an offensive lineman. I'm glad he broke down the sacks like that, too. It was not just one specific element or one specific type of concept that Texas struggled with on the offensive line. No, it's the running back had some issues blocking those pressure packages. There was the breakdown in protection. You talked about the cornerback blitz, and then straight up, Kelvin Banks and Cameron Williams just got beat sometimes, right on an island, one-on-one. My guy versus your two NFL guys versus NFL guys, and they just got beat. So it was a lot of different reasons for it, but either way, no matter what the reasons for Texas breaks down in pass protection, they got to get better. As a team, they got to get better, and that means the leadership has to step up for Texas this weekend. Honestly, that Quinn's got to be a part of that, right? Quinn's at a natural leadership position. He's going to be, the starting quarterback. Even if he's struggling, he's still got to be a leader, and he's got to lead by example more than anything for him. He's got to go out there and just play well. Here's Sark talking about the leadership that needs to step up and assert itself after their first loss of the season.
I liked our leadership in the locker room. Even before I went in there to speak, I could hear a few of our leaders speaking up. And the beauty of that statement I just made was a few. A few years ago, I might have had one, and now I've got a few guys speaking up and really speaking our language and believing in what we believe in. I think one thing that I was proud of our guys today, they were all coachable. A lot of the times after a tough loss, pride can get in the way from getting coached. And I didn't feel that today. I felt a lot of guys wanting to get better, wanting to get coached. Where can I improve? And then they came out with a good spirit about them today. And naturally, there's a bad taste in our mouth. Naturally, we're a prideful group. We want to play better than we did. I do think we have a lot to prove, and I think we've got a chip on our shoulder. And that again, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's a good thing. I've always been a guy that has thrived when I have something to prove to somebody. And again, I think that our team has taken on that personality as well.
All right, there's Sark talking about the leadership. It definitely will be tested this week, from the quarterback, conversation to how this team responds after a loss to going on the road to play Vanderbilt, a team that is riding a high. I mean, Vanderbilt's playing some of the best football they've played in the history of their program. Like the history of the program, like they are riding that kind of high. So it'll be interesting to see how Texas approaches their first loss of the season. All right, we'll come back. We'll get into the topic for the Big Fat Poll today. We'll also get into the musically themed day of the week. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn.
Back in the Rodcast here on a Tuesday morning, and that means it's a top of the charts Tuesday where I'll play you songs that were number one on this day in history, starting off some Manfred Mann back in the day there. Let's get to the big fat poll of the day. Text line's open, 512-447-3776, and we'll get this posted up on X at the Horn ATX.
Patrick's big fat poll of the day on the Horn.
All right, want to get a judge? This is a poll to get a judgment of where the fan base is right now. I know I've seen a couple other asking you where your feelings are, but this seems like a simple way to figure out how you guys are feeling about the season and get a judgment of how you guys are feeling. So how many more losses will Texas have in the regular season? How are you feeling? Do you think Texas can win out? Do you feel that this is a team that is going to struggle more in SEC play? And so we'll give you how many losses will Texas have in the regular season? More losses. We'll say how many more losses will Texas have in the regular season? 0 is going to be the option. I'm thinking 0 is going to win, but we'll see. We'll see. I just want to see what the poll is. Yeah, the poll easy 0, 1, 2, or 3. Not giving you more than 3.
Like regular season.
Regular season. I don't want to go in the playoffs because that gets more complicated because you have to say, are you in the SEC championship game? And then because then it's more convoluted. But we're just saying in the regular season, you have Vanderbilt, Florida, Arkansas, Kentucky, and A&M left. Those 5 games. That is your 5 games left. We're talking about everyone but Kentucky is a team that's over 500. You are actually playing a ranked Vanderbilt team. Who saw that coming? They're ranked number 25.
Yeah.
They're a 2-loss Vanderbilt team. I don't think anybody really saw that one coming. Florida is not playing great. They're still not a very good team, but they're playing a little bit better than they were at the beginning of the season. We know what Arkansas can do. It surprised some teams. We know what A&M can do. And Kentucky's a solid team. I'm not as worried about them at this point, but they're still a solid team. They just got to be careful about. And then A&M, of course, that last game of the season, and anything can happen in a game like that.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I had them as an 11-1 team, and I had the loss to Georgia at the beginning of the year. I did pick Texas versus Georgia, but at the beginning of the year, I did have them 11-1. So probably should just stick with it right now. But I'll stick with 11-1. I'll say 0 losses the rest of the way. I'll stick with 11-1 because I think I don't know if another team on your schedule they'll try to replicate the scheme that Georgia deployed, but they don't have the talent. They don't have Mikael Williams. They don't have those types of players, impact players on their team. So they'll try to take some of the schematic concepts that Georgia used to, I think take advantage of and exploit some of the vulnerabilities for Texas. Like I said, but I don't know if a Vanderbilt or Texas A&M actually, they do have good front 7 guys, and Mac Elko is one of the better defensive minds. So maybe the Aggies can replicate some of those things with true NFL talent on the defensive line, but they're not Georgia.
No, and I mean, you're not just talking D-line because you have to do it in the back end too, in the secondary, to make Quinn hold the ball and not have open receivers that he can go see and get the ball out to. You have to have that as well. So you have to have it all over, and that's where most of these teams might have some guys up front, might have some guys in the back, but they probably don't have enough that you can cover, again, when we say how many wide receivers Texas has, how many options they have. So I'm saying they're not going to have another loss this season. I still have faith in this team. I think that was a wake up call game. It wasn't as bad as I think some people made it. Like that first half was ugly. It was extremely ugly, but your defense also still played well in that game. So it wasn't like an ugly game where you just got completely blown out on both sides of the football. Your defense actually played pretty well. They just were on the field way too much in that first half. They held them to 10 points in the second half.
Yep.
So, and like so at that point, and basically that was really on a trick play was most of that offense. So all that said and done, defensively, I think the team's still playing extremely, extremely good football. And then offensively, I trust Sark to figure that out. I think Quinn will get back on the right track, but I have it as 0 more losses. I think they'll have 0 more losses. But I'm curious. I'm curious what you guys think of how many more losses there on the text line and on X.
I think the most likely losses coming up, unfortunately, are to rivals on the road.
Yeah. Of course.
If there is a chance for Texas to lose, it's going to be on the road versus rivals. A&M right now, they're leading the SEC, undefeated in SEC play, and you got to go to their place. And then there's Arkansas, who's exceeding expectations this year, and Arkansas looks like they're going to be pretty formidable, and that's always a tough place to play. I think those are the two most likely, and the emotional volatility, right, of those situations. They're both going to be emotionally charged environments. Of course, the Aggie game will be, of course, but Arkansas will be too, because they hate Texas more than they love themselves. So those are, unfortunately, if you're going to lose, those are two of the places you're likely to lose, the two most likely places you are going to lose at. And those are horrible places to lose at.
Yeah.
And it'd be horrible to lose to your rival.
Yeah.
Your first year in the SEC. But I will say right now, the Aggies, they're the only team I think that can do some of the things maybe Georgia did on defense because of the way how good their defense is and their defensive front. But they're still not Georgia.
No.
Nobody is, guys.
No.
Nobody is.
Nope.
And they don't have Kirby Smart either.
Nope.
By the way, who's also the best coach in college football too. We just disrespected Georgia, I think, in our preparation because I hadn't seen that Georgia team on film. That Georgia defense had not shown up on film. That was the first time we saw that Georgia defense. And that was the Georgia defense to be feared. They hadn't played like that all year.
No, the Georgia games you watched
saved
before.
Their best game for Texas.
No, they saved some of the players for Texas. They saved.
Yeah, they did.
They saved a lot for Texas.
Too.
Yeah,
because honestly, that cornerback blitz, that was a tendency breaker. That ain't something they've been throwing out there.
No,
I hadn't seen it. They broke some tendency with that. Yeah, and you know what? They did at the right time in a big game. So, yeah, I got Texas 0 low. I'll go 11-1 the rest of the way. I'm not panicked like some Longhorn fans are. They're in panic mode already. No need to panic yet.
No, that's what
Quinn has another bad game. You lose to Vanderbilt, then I will bring the panic button on the show and we will press it together. Patrick and I will start pressing the panic button. But I don't anticipate that happening, so no panic button here. All right, that's time for the big fat poll today. How many more losses do you foresee the Longhorns having on the rest of their schedule now they've taken their first L of the season to the Georgia Bulldogs? We'll get into that. We'll also talk more about the NFL news, notes, and nuggets. I got a troubling stat that I want to share with you guys about the Texans. We'll also get into this story about one of the biggest surprises of the NFL, a pleasant surprise of the NFL season. And turns out there is a cheat code that this young NFL rookie is using that I'm curious why more NFL teams aren't using it, or maybe they use it and they don't talk about it, but I don't know. He's definitely benefited a ton from using this technological hack, if you will, to help his development as a quarterback. We'll talk about it. We'll get into that too coming up in the next hour when we talk NFL. We'll also have Rod's rant coming up. That's when we'll review some of my film study from my rewatch of the Texas-Georgia game, talk about the adjustments that Sark made in the second half that really sparked the offense, all of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a top of the charts Tuesday. That's when Patrick, my co-host, the ideallionaire on the show, plays jams that reach the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. And I always learn something new on the top of the charts Tuesday. So I appreciate Patrick and his efforts there. We also appreciate his efforts with the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the day, which always is a great conversation starter. We'll get that posted on X for you. Patrick, what is the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the day?
Big Fat Poll of the day. How many losses will Texas have in the rest of the regular season?
It's good. Yeah, I think right now I'm still optimistic, so I'm going with 0 because I just don't think any team can expose you the way Georgia did because of the athletes Georgia has. But yeah, I mean, now that you have been, I think shown to have some weaknesses that teams can at least dial in on. There's a blueprint. Now, can every team, replicate and execute that blueprint? No, but there is a blueprint. Georgia gave you a good one. We'll go into some of the details of that blueprint when in Raj ran the day, because we'll talk about my rewatch of the Texas Georgia game and what I saw. But yeah, there's a blueprint out there. But I don't think a team left on the regular season schedule can do what Georgia did to you. And your defense. You're going to be in every game because of your defense anyway. Your defense is just that good. Even against Georgia, your defense was legit. You're only the surprising, the surprising thing about the Texas Georgia, most surprising, was that I think the assumption was the defense might be exposed a little bit. And it wasn't. It was the offense that was exposed in that game. Quarterback, kind of regression potentially, offensive line with pass protection issues, a subpar run game overall. But that was against Georgia. Texas hadn't looked like that against Michigan. It looked pretty damn good. That was a good defense against Oklahoma. Yeah, a bit of a shaky start, but Texas offense found its way versus Oklahoma. And, of course, Oklahoma's offense, which, by the way, we hadn't talked about, but they fired Seth Luttrell. That didn't take long.
No.
I mean, I told you guys, that's one of the worst offenses I've ever seen in the history of Oklahoma football. I didn't think they'd do it then, but it was going to happen at the end of the season anyway.
Yeah.
And what's the old saying? If it's inevitable, make it immediate. It was inevitable.
I think
there's no way.
I think at a certain point you had to do it now just because they're like, well, no, what recruit is going to come here?
That's a great point. Yeah, you can't recruit to that.
No. I mean, you calling up recruits and service disconnected. No, server's been blocked.
You're getting that. Yeah, that's true. Early on, you're getting that voicemail quick after like the second ring. It's like, damn. Well, they sent me the voicemail. That didn't just go to voicemail. Like, no, you want to go to voicemail like after like the 8th or 9th ring, or you want to go immediately to voicemail. You get that voicemail after like the second ring. That means they looked at it and went, "Oh hell no, nope, I'm not doing that one." So that's probably what right. Oklahoma's probably getting a lot of that, but Seth Luttrell is gone because that off. I mean, it was one of the worst offenses in college. You could make the argument it was the worst Power 4 offense, period, in the country. Like that, there was some metrics and stats that would support that argument. And if you're Oklahoma football, there's no excuse to ever be that poor on offense.
No, you're going to the SEC, but you don't expect to have a worse offense than Mississippi State and Vanderbilt.
Exactly.
And you do.
Yeah, and you do. Right? And look about where you just came from. I mean, Lincoln Riley, at one point, you were a quarterback factory. You had one of the most elite offenses in college football, and that was just what, I don't know, like 4 or 5 years. I mean, it wasn't that long ago. Yeah. It's like 4 years ago. And so I think that precipitous fall from grace has the Sooners ridiculous. I cannot wait to see what Brent Venables does, though. This is a big hire. This is his biggest hire.
Yeah.
I mean, this is big. If he messes this up, he is gone. It ain't gonna take long either. They'll pay that whatever his buyout is. They won't be worried about that. They'll get him out. Because even Bob Stoops now is starting to sound a little shaky on his support for Brent Venables.
Yeah.
And that was his guy. But he don't want the Sooners to look at him like, Bob Stoops, man, you recommended this guy, and look, he's not taking care of the program.
You brought in Lincoln Riley, who's a traitor and a horrible person, and we're gonna forget everything he did for us. And then,
and then he brought in this dude.
Right?
Can't do nothing. He brought in Oklahoma's Charlie Strong. Okay, so we can't have that. You got to figure something else out. So yeah, I think right now there's some. there's an offensive identity crisis. That's kind of the way I describe it, because Texas went through one right now at Oklahoma. They got to be careful. Theirs doesn't last. What did Texas offensive identity crisis last? Like 10 years? It lasted a while, where Texas offensively just couldn't figure out who they were. And Oklahoma right now, they're on the precipice of that, if you will. Okay, so we'll get to some Texas football conversation, of course, when we get into Rod's rant. Also, I want to talk a little Texans here. We got some time. Hadn't talked Cowboys in a while, but we can start talking Cowboys again, because they're done with their bye week. Still hadn't heard about a move.
Nope.
Damn. Sorry, Cowboys fans. They hadn't heard about a move at all. Nothing.
Nope.
No trade for a running back. No trade for a run stuffing D tackle. It looks like Jerry Jones was being honest. Nothing. We like our guys. They like their guys. And they get healthy on defense, they'll be better, but you still going to have the same issues that you once had. You're still going to be vulnerable and exploitable in the run game, because you don't have a D tackle that can be a formidable presence in the running game and as a run stopper. And you don't have a running back who can be a game breaker for you. They can take a 4 or 5 yard run and turn it into a 10 or a 12-yard run.
Oh, but don't worry, Rod. They're saving Zeke. One of the most crazy statements. You're like, it's not that he's running for 10 yards a carry and you're just not running him. He's running for 2 yards a carry. I don't know. So is he just not trying? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, he's trying. He's trying. He's doing the best he can. I don't blame Zeke, by the way. This is not Zeke's fault. This is not Zeke's fault. This is the Cowboys' fault. They should never have attempted to build a running game necessarily around Zeke. I know Rico's getting more touches, as he should, but the Cowboys still, even with Rico, they need another game-breaking presence in the backfield, and they just don't really have it right now. But we'll see. It's going to come. We'll see. They still got some time. I mean, the Cowboys still got time to make moves. Trade deadline isn't for a few weeks, but still, I thought during the bye week that would be the perfect time. Bring in somebody, let them get acclimated, familiarize them with the system. You got some extra time, you get some extra practices. It's not going to be the case. So we'll see what the Cowboys do. But we'll talk Texans a little bit coming up here. Also, I hope we got time for it. I think we do. There's a story that was really intriguing about a superstar rookie in the NFL right now that I want to get into, because I followed this story when he was in college. It is really about this specific technology too that he was using in college, and turns out he's using it now in the NFL too, and it's paying huge dividends for him. So we'll talk about that coming up a little bit later on in this hour. But first, before we do any of that, let's get updated, let's get educated, let's get informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines. Then we'll come back and talk a little NFL news, notes, and nuggets. But first, Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines.
All right, your Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. The NBA season tips off tonight with the Knicks taking on the Celtics and the Timberwolves facing the Lakers. Last season's NBA champions will see the first look of the new Knicks lineup with the additions of Mikal Bridges and Karl Anthony Towns, while the Timberwolves will have their new lineup with Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo taking on LeBron and the Lakers. And in the NFL, the Ravens outpaced the Buccaneers 41-31 with Lamar Jackson throwing for 5 touchdowns and Derrick Henry adding 169 yards on the ground on 15 carries. The Buccaneers fear they have lost Chris Godwin for the season with a dislocated ankle, while there is still no timetable for Mike Evans' return, who left the game with a hamstring injury. And the Arizona Cardinals hit a last-second field goal to top the Chargers 17-15 in a game where the Chargers could not get in the end zone, scoring all of their points off of 5 Cameron Dicker field goals. And that is your Horn Headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn Headlines. Yeah, I mean, once Mike Evans left that game last night, that the Bucs offense looked putrid. It looked terrible.
Mike Evans was already playing on a shaky hamstring. Then he went down and hurt his knee a little bit going down, and then gets hurt on that play where he's really good. And then to lose Chris Godwin as well, who's having a really good season. Didn't do much in the game, but he's now out there.
He has gravity. Like you gotta know where he is if you're a defense. You gotta account for him. And now they don't really have, without Mike Evans and Godwin suffering, an ankle injury, doesn't look like they have anybody the defense have to account for. That's why Baker Mayfield's been playing best football of his career. Yeah, I believe he's still leading the NFL in touchdown passes, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know. Not even after Lamar. Lamar didn't take it over last night.
I don't know if Lamar took it over last night. I was looking at that this morning. I'm not sure he took it over last night. I'll go back here. I'll check it right here. Yeah, touchdowns. It's still Baker money, man. He's got 18.
Wow. They do not.
I know.
They don't have a running game, do they?
Yeah. I mean, Baker's been the offense, but now that number is probably going to start to, plateau a little bit just because you're losing Mike Evans and you're losing Chris Godwin. But Baker's been killing. I'd say 18 touchdowns. Lamar Jackson got 15. He's second. He's tied with Jordan Love with 15 passing touchdowns. Lamar's got, I think, a couple of rushing touchdowns too. Baker actually, I think, has got a couple of rushing touchdowns too, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, remember Mike Evans said he's the best dual threat quarterback.
Mike Evans did say that. I cannot believe that actually came out of his mouth. I was like, do you know what a dual threat is, Mike Evans? Are you sure you understand the meaning of it? But anyway, yeah, Baker's got some issues now, at least of that passing game. We'll see.
Yeah.
But he's been having a fantastic season so far. And also, man, in that matchup, I mean, you really saw that Baltimore offense, though. I mean, it is a lethal offense when it's rolling, when it's clicking.
Yeah. I
mean, they had, I believe, on their that they punted on their first drive, and then the Ravens went touchdown, field goal, touchdown. They fumbled. That was on that backwards pass by Jackson, and then it went touchdown again. They scored 34 unanswered points after falling behind 10-0, and then. But basically Lamar Jackson just went off. I mean, he 17 of 22 for 281 yards, 5 passing touchdowns. He had 9 rushes for 52 yards. The best thing about this offense is for the first time since, I believe it, you got to go all the way back for Lamar Jackson to 2018 was the last time he didn't lead the Ravens in rushing. Like the last time he wasn't the leading rusher for the Ravens was 2018.
Jeez.
2019, 20. 5 straight years he's led them in rushing and passing. Isn't that absurd? That is absurd. And not absurd in like a bad way. It's just freaky and crazy. And we're so kind of desensitized to it because he's been doing it every year that we don't even talk about how remarkable it is. But that is unbelievable. Guys, nobody's ever done that. Randall Cunningham did it 4 times. It's the only quarterback I can find that did it as much as Lamar Jackson has. But I don't think he did it. Yeah, he did it actually in 4 straight years. Randall Cunningham was a freak, man. Randall Cunningham was actually, there was some, and that was a great comparison. I heard one day somebody said, basically, people don't remember Randall Cunningham, but it's like basically Patrick Mahomes is a very elite version of Randall Cunningham. Yeah. And I was like, that's actually not bad.
Yeah.
It's not bad when you think about it, right? Because Randall Cunningham he was an amazing athlete. Didn't he used to punt and stuff too back in the day? I thought he had like he would punt at times
I can believe
too.
It,
like
but yeah, I don't.
I'm gonna look it up. I'll make sure I didn't make that up. But I swear, like there's like some Randall Cunningham punting videos, but people don't remember Randall Cunningham very much just because I mean these day and age he's still not one of the more popular players. But during his time, man, I'm telling you, like he was almost an unstoppable. He was an offense he was almost his offensive universe in his own skill set. Like he was, he could be a catalyst for an offense. And back then, you didn't see quarterbacks that were. Oh yeah, he had a 91-yard punt actually, 3rd longest in history. I'm not joking. No, it's serious. He's the only player to have a touchdown pass of 50+ yards, a touchdown run of 50+ yards, and a punt of 50+ yards in a game.
That's
in the same game.
That's ridiculous.
No, Randall Cunningham, I'm telling you, it was a different level of freaky athlete, man, back in the day. Anyway, but he led his team in rushing in 87, 88, 89, and 90. The difference, and his teams were winning games. They were 75 those years, 10-6, 11-5, and 10-6 those years. Lamar Jackson, his teams have been in his years where he's led them in rushing. So he's definitely the winningest quarterback to do this, to lead their team in rushing and passing. Because he's won 13 games, the 13-2, 13-3. Remember, he has some games where he doesn't start necessarily because he was out because of injury. 11-4, 7-5, and 8-4. Those are his records when he's leading his team in rushing and passing. Most quarterbacks who do this, they end up on bad teams. But I would say it's becoming more and more of a common achievement that these quarterbacks can do this. Because if you go look at it, the quarterbacks who can lead their team in passing and rushing, and it's happened. 14 players, I believe, have done it, and it's been done 27 total times, but 14 players in NFL history have done it. Randall Cunningham, Bobby Douglas in 1972. He was I think 4-9-1. Donovan McNabb did it in 2000. He was 11-5. Cam Newton actually did it twice, 2012 and 2017. Russell Wilson did it once. And he was 9-7. He did. Josh Allen has done it.
Yeah.
Ryan Fitzpatrick freaking done it, which is wild.
Jeez.
I don't even know how the hell that happened. He's 5'11. Jalen Hurts did it in 2021. The first player to do it, was actually Tobin Rote. This was like in 1951, 52, 56, and 58. Charlie Trippy, who's a Hall of Famer, did it in 51 and 52. Al Darrow did it in, I think that's 1960, along with Lenny Moore. Lenny Moore did it in 1960 as well. But if you go modern era, your modern era quarterbacks are Justin Fields did it actually. He did it in 22 and 23. I said Jalen Hurts did it in 21. Ryan Fitzpatrick did it in 2019. Lamar Jackson has done it the last 5 years. Josh Allen did it in 2018. Russell Wilson in 2017. Cam Newton in 2017, but also in 2012. Then Donovan McNabb did in 2000. And like I said, Randall Cunningham, he had his 4 seasons in a row. He did it. I guess you can consider Bobby Douglas the modern era too.
Yeah, and we'll see Jaden Daniels, see if he does it this year. He's right now. Brian Robinson is at 396. Jaden Daniels at 372.
Ooh, really?
So he's right there. I mean, we don't know injury wise if he's going to be. He's got that rib injury. If that sets it back a little bit in trying to do it, but that is a question. He's somebody that could do it this year because he's only, less than 20 yards away from it.
He scrambles a ton.
Yeah.
His scramble rates are really high. He loves to get out there and scramble. And speaking of, man, I'm kind of glad you brought it up. Okay, so Jaden Daniels, and actually I got some sound. I'm going to try to send to Patrick about this later. So Jaden Daniels, when he was in college, he trained with this virtual reality headset that was engineered by this company called Cognize. It was a German company that made this virtual reality training device for soccer players initially. But they started to transition to football. And they have these virtual reality goggles and everything. So you know how that works. And of course, it uses AI technology as well. And Daniel says he owes a lot of his rapid development the last 2 years to this virtual reality technology, Cognize. He said it helped him during his Heisman Trophy winning year because that's when he first started using it. He said he first started using it in college, actually for the Mississippi State game, his last year in college. And he went 30 of 34, 361 yards and 2 touchdowns. And that was actually a pair of drops on there. So he should have been 32 of 34. And then if you go look at his, because that Mississippi State game was the 3rd game of the year for them, I believe it was. If I'm not mistaken. Yes, it was. It was the 3rd game of the year. And so he was still having, a good season, but that was like his breakout game. He had an 88% completion percentage, and just everybody started paying attention to, man, what's going on with this quarterback, that transfer quarterback there at LSU. And he says that he trained with this device, this virtual reality device, since that time at LSU, since that Mississippi State game. He's been training with it every week, even in his rookie season with the Washington Commanders. And Cliff Kingsbury recently said to the New York Times he's all in, that Cliff Kingsbury and Jaden Daniels are both all in. Cliff Kingsbury is his offensive coordinator at the Washington. That he's all in on this virtual reality training. He said, Cliff Kingsbury said, quote, "The first time I put the VR headset on, I backed into the wall. It felt like a real pass rush was coming at me." And Jaden Daniels said a big part of his rapid development has been this virtual reality device. He gives it credit for his Heisman Trophy campaign and season. And he says it's a big part of why he's so successful in the NFL as a rookie. He said, quote, "They load in the stadium you're playing in, and it looks exactly like the stadium. and it's moving faster than a human being would be moving, I'll get in there and say they'll probably give me 7 seconds to know the play. Pre-snap, I get to see the coverages and know where I'm going with the football all before the play clock runs out. He said, it's as real as the game reps, Cliff Kingsbury said. He said that Daniels works with the app every morning. He said it's basically a flight simulator for quarterbacks.
Wow.
It's a flight simulator. He said it's basically gives you the ability to sit on your couch or just stay in your house, however you want to do it. You can do it mentally, or you can actually work your way through it physically.
Yeah.
He said he said without having to deal with the physical wear and tear of putting on pads and going out there and putting yourself in harm's way. You can get all basically mental reps, intellectual reps of the quarterback position. He said, Cliff Kingsbury said, it's a unique technology, and it's definitely for the quarterbacks. I think it's more effective than them just watching film. They're going through their reads. They're going through their progressions. They're seeing it. And like I said, I wonder now, my question is for my team, and you probably for your team too. Hey, coach, are y'all using virtual reality headset training? Because I need to know if y'all are not, can y'all start using it ASAP? Because it's working for Jaden Daniels. I'm sure. I mean, these are $1 billion franchises, right? This is a multi-billion-dollar entity talking about the NFL. I mean, this virtual reality, I'm sure it's expensive, but it's not too expensive, especially when you're talking about giving your quarterback an advantage that may end up, helping you win a Super Bowl. If my team doesn't have it, I would be upset about it. I'd have an opinion about that. I would like CJ Stroud. I'm sure the Texans have it.
Yeah, and I mean,
I'm
that's
sure
too is because CJ Stroud's a young enough quarterback that it's a
That's
lot
why
easier.
I figure it's a young, yes.
Yeah, you're not going to go to Derek Carr and be like, hey, man, I know you've been doing this for a long time. Aaron Rodgers ain't going to have it, right?
You're probably right.
Because some of those guys I don't think would necessarily be like, look, I've done it one way forever. I've only got a few years left in the tank. I'm not trying to learn how to do this new thing. But some of the younger guys who are trying to get an edge, they feel like they may be more likely to go do it. And I mean, everybody learns differently too. So I'm sure for some people it's better, and some people it does nothing. It's something where it's just no, I just don't. I don't comprehend things that way. But I would try it. I would get it and try it, because if I'm trying everything else to win games and how important the quarterback position is, why would you not at least try?
Yeah. And like I said, it was initially a soccer technology. The company Cognalize, they said, this is what they say on their website about the technology: an immersive decision-making training for athletes. It's immersive decision-making training for athletes, which allows enhancing of split-second reads and more reps in high-pressure environments. Like I said, this was for soccer. They've converted it to football because it's just, AI technology that basically tests your ability to rapidly process information. So right now it seems like it's being, at least experimentally, is being tried by a lot of football programs around the country and maybe a lot of football teams down in the NFL. So I know Texas has it. I know they do. Texas has all the latest toys. I don't know how much they use it, but I'd like to ask Sark, like, hey, how much you guys using the virtual reality technology for your quarterback training and development? Yeah. But Jaden Daniels swears by it. In fact, I'll send Patrick some of the audio. He was on an interview, I believe, with Keyshawn Johnson on their All Facts. I think it's the All Facts No Breaks podcast, and I heard him talking about it. And he's, like I said, he's pretty adamant that it has been one of the major factors in his success so far in the last couple of years. And just kind of rapid. I mean, think about it. The guy came out of nowhere to win the Heisman. And now, I don't say came out of nowhere, but not a lot of people were familiar with him and transferring from Arizona State. And then now is having one of the greatest rookie seasons in the history of the NFL. He is right now currently top 3. Yeah, because he is, people look at, he's top 4 in yards per attempt, top 3 in QBR, and he's 6th in passer rating. It's pretty damn good for a rookie. It's pretty damn good for a rookie. All right, we come back. We'll get into Rod's rant. We'll talk Texas, Georgia. I looked at, got a chance to rewatch the game, look at the film a little bit. I'll tell you what I saw. We'll get into some of the adjustments that were made. We'll get into some of the game planning for Georgia versus Texas, all that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into Rod's rant of the day. I just want to talk about some of the things I saw rewatching the Texas Georgia game. First and foremost, the Georgia game plan was a masterclass defensively. I mean, it really was just a straight up masterclass. They made sure that as much as they could, that the pre-snap look was different than the post-snap look for Quinn. I mean, whether you're talking about the safety rotations, whether you're talking about the front and them stemming on the front and moving things around the front seven, it was a different look. And even go look at the sacks, right? That all the sacks, it'd be one thing if all the sacks came the same kind of way. They didn't all come the same kind of way. They did not at all. Because they had so much variety. They had so much variety in their pressure packages, so much variety in their defensive game plan. And, I think they really surprised Texas and kept Texas guessing on exactly how to adjust and how to counter what Georgia was doing. I mean, think about that. one of the sacks came on a cornerback blitz. That ended up being a 5-man blitz. I mean, think about that pressure on that last. What was that play? Was that a 4th and 12 or something like that for Texas? At the end of the game, that last 4th down they're trying to throw, he kind of he underthrew it to Ryan Wingo over the middle. They started out that play, the defense for Georgia, they started out in a 3-man odd front, and they stemmed last second to a 6-man front and then came with a 0 blitz. That's a lot for a quarterback and an O-line to process 3 seconds, 2 seconds before the snap. And that's what Kirby Smart was doing constantly. And, one of the things to counter, Sark always says Sark's offense is a deception-based passing game. It's a deception-based pass game. Everything is built on deception. The play action pass is deception. The RPO is deception. His screen game, deception. 70% of Sark's passing game is just deception. Just trying to fool you, get your eyes in the wrong place, misdirection, to get you reacting to one piece, one element, right, of his eye candy conceptual signatures, and then be able to use your eyes and your keys against you. He does a great job of that. But with Kirby Smart and almost being a chess master himself, he flipped the script on Sark, and he used a lot of defensive disguise to counter Sark's offensive, deception-based passing game. And like I said, it was with the secondary in the back end, moving, rotating those safeties, and it was in the front, stemming the defensive line. And to stem something basically means you have a shift by the defensive line from one gap to another gap. But it changes the entire blocking scheme. It changes everything, right? It changes who you're identifying as the Mike linebacker. It changes all the responsibilities in the run game for the offense. If you do that at the last second, you can cause a lot of chaos and confusion. And Kirby was causing a lot of chaos and confusion with Texas. So that was one thing that you just kind of noticed that really stood out. It's the variety of looks, the variety of rotations, the variety of different fronts that Kirby threw out there. That was really, really impressive. And it was just hard for Quinn to really identify what the coverages were consistently. They wanted to keep him guessing, and that's a lot of the reason that he held on to the football. And it seemed like he was indecisive. Like, why? Well, just throw it. He was taking time to process and confirm what he was seeing. Usually pre-snap will help you do that. Pre-snap matches post-snap. Let's go. Pre-snap did not match post-snap. And they made sure of it, that it was not going to match for Quinn. And that was a little bit of a struggle, I think, for Quinn. And it was a struggle for the offense period to find its rhythm. In addition to, like I said, guys just getting beat one-on-ones, the creative schematic, I think, theme for Kirby was, let's mix it up. Let's keep the variety. Let's mix it up. They should never be able to dial in on what we're doing. And I think that was a big part of the game plan for them. Also, for Sark, I think he finally started to make his adjustments. It takes Sark a while. We talked about seeing the Oklahoma game, right? It took him a quarter. And he was troubleshooting, all right, figuring out, okay, what's going to work? Boom, he finally found that split flow outside zone, that split flow wide zone. And boom, all your big run plays hit on that. And then as the game went on, he found empty formation was working against them because they had a default coverage to empty, and boom, started hitting on empty, right? They went 7-7 on empty. So he found a couple of concepts that worked. They were able to move the football with those and get you some chunk yards. And that's really what you need, right? To really get the offense in a groove, to really get it going. Sark needs a chunk yardage play. You got none of those in the first half versus Georgia. So the offense never found a groove, never found a rhythm. Never got a chunk yards play. Your biggest play was Arch Manning running for 20-something yards in the first half. That was it. That was your big play. Right? It was hard to get those big chunk yardage plays down the field. And in the second half, just kind of looking at my notes here, there were two things I noticed. And we talked about this when Arch was starting, right? His first couple of games. And I told you guys, I said, I'm noticing that Sark is that he's different now. He's basically deploying his personnel groups a little bit differently. In years past, Sark was half the time his baby is 11 personnel. That's one back, one tight end. All right. First number is always number running backs on the field. Second number is always number of tight ends on the field. So one back, one tight end. That's 11 personnel. So 11 personnel is his baby. Anytime he's in trouble, third and medium or third and long. Anytime he really wants to like blitz defenses with a lot of speed, 11 personnel has been his baby. He's been a 50% 11 personnel guy since he's been in Texas. That has been the most popular personnel grouping for Texas since Sark has been here. And that's tracked. This year, though, there are some differences. This year, I am noticing 12 personnel in some of those third down situations. He's actually leading with 12 personnel a bit more. He started out that second half with 12 personnel. He was down 20. He was down 3 touchdowns and throwing out 12 personnel. You think, oh, man, no, throw out my 11 personnel, get speed on the field because we're going to be throwing the football downfield, and they can't cover and defend all of our weapons. So I think he was I would think it was this game that he was concerned about the pass protection if I hadn't seen it earlier this year and brought it up earlier this year. So it's not just this game. Now, this game may have forced him to be a little bit more extreme in his usage and deployment of 12 personnel in situations where he's trying to come back or in third and medium, third and long situations. But I would say it's been something he's been experimenting with. And maybe in anticipation of, I'm not sure if he thinks that it's going to boost the running game or if he thinks it's going to it's going to improve the pass protection, or maybe both. And maybe that's why you're getting more 12 personnel to insulate the pass protection, but also give you more juice in the running game because Juan Davis is a more than capable blocker. And remember, Juan Davis, you're essentially taking away a receiving element. Yes, he has receptions on the season, but he doesn't go downfield. Juan Davis I don't think he's caught a pass past 10 yards. Juan Davis doesn't go down. He's a check down. He's a check down guy. I'm scouting, text him like, no, check down guy. He's check down guy, guys. You want to break tendency? Make him go, put him on the route going down the seam. Because we have not really seen Juan Davis go downfield and be targeted very much, if at all. So he's a check down guy. So it's remarkable that Sark, even knowing that we know that, our opponents know that as well about Juan Davis, he still wants to go with 12 personnel, which means he's either really concerned about pass protection, which he was against Georgia, and I think also he wants to see if it'll add a boost to the running game. And it actually does add a little bit of a boost to the running game. And in this game versus Georgia, it was one of the adjustments that actually led to you having some explosive plays because you really hadn't had many explosive plays the entire game. Remember, the first half, actually the only one you really got was the Arch Manning 20-something yard run. And if I'm not mistaken, that was out of empty formation. Remember I told you guys, what's the most stressful formation to defend? A situation for a defense to defend? Empty formation with a dual threat quarterback. Been saying it for years. When Arch have his biggest play in the game, empty formation, he's a dual threat quarterback that run, got a 20-something yard run. Now Kirby Smart, he put the kibosh on it because he put a spy on him, right? As soon as he had that big run, okay, put a spy on him, and you didn't have any more of Arch using his legs as that kind of added, complementary element to the defense, but to the offense. But it's still, like I said, it just proves my theory about empty formation. But I digress. So in the second half for Texas, they found 12 personnel, gave them a chance for a lot more explosive plays. You had that Jaden Blue touchdown, and you had a play action pass, a 19-yarder to Golden from 11 personnel in the second half. So you did have some plays, but most of your explosive plays, which is rare in my opinion, came actually out of 12 personnel, one back, two tight ends. You had that 34-yarder for Matthew Golden. You had another 24-yarder for Matthew Golden. You had you had a 10-yard running back run, which is rare in that game versus Georgia. You had that out of 12 personnel. You had a 23-yard reception for Helm out of 12 personnel. You had more explosive plays out of 12 personnel. One back, two tight ends. You had out of 11. That's different. That's uncommon, I would say, for a Sark offense. Usually 11 is your explosive personnel grouping, but it was 12 here. So I think Sark found something. He was like, nah. And I think it was more about just having an extra big body on the field to help in pass protection and then maybe give you an extra added gap in the running game. But like I said, I wonder how that'll translate to next week. If we'll see that continue to be the case next week, you don't face a unique beast like Georgia again on the schedule. But like I said, Sark has been trending toward more 12 personnel. He likes 12 more this year than he has in recent years. I can't blame him because Gunnar Helm is a beast, but last year you could have liked it too. You had Gunnar Helm and JT Sanders last year. But he didn't like it as much last year. Last year there was more variety. That was more pony package. That was more 6-0 line package. We haven't even seen Big 11, Big 12 this year. I don't know what the hell he's saving it for. I have no idea. I thought he'd break it out versus Oklahoma. I was wrong. Didn't break it out versus Oklahoma. Didn't break it out versus Georgia. I'm not sure what he's saving it for. But we're seeing less variety personnel grouping wise, and I think he's pumping up more of the 12 personnel, and maybe it's to help the O-line. I think maybe it's more to help the running game. I think the run game is what really needs to help. Now I say that, and you just gave up 7 sacks to Georgia, but I think they got elite pass rushing personnel. All right, and I think your running game. I think for me, I think it's more about the running game than pass protection. You are the best, or if not one of the best pass protection offensive lines in the country going into that game against Georgia. Yes, Georgia was able to beat you, but I don't think other teams will be able to do that. The run game for me, I'll give you a stat about how bad the running game was for Texas, because I was a little shocked when I saw this research and went, wow, that I didn't realize it was that bad. So Texas ran the ball 27 times for 29 yards. Most people forget that because they focus on how bad the passing game was and how bad Quinn was in the offensive line, and forget you ran the ball 27 times for 29 yards. Only 3 teams since 2021 have rushed for fewer yards against Georgia. Vanderbilt in 2023, Samford in 2021, and Clemson in 2021. Sorry, Samford in 2022 and Clemson in 2021. Texas 1.1 yards per carry. The worst rushing average against Georgia since Samford in 2022. Not Stanford. Samford. Samford. Not Stanford. Samford in 2022. And they rushed for 19 yards on 17 attempts and averaged 1.1 yards per carry. The running game, I think, and Sark brought it up too, it was just as poor, if not poorer, than the pass protection, guys. Got to figure that out. So I think that's something that's why you're probably seeing a little bit more 12 personnel too. So that was one of the adjustments. And another one of the adjustments was, and this is something I brought up before the game, targets to motion, because Georgia had a tough time versus Mississippi State of defending targets to motion. They gave up like a 70-yard bomb on a target to motion. Targets to motion are targets to players who were in motion prior to the snap, at the time of the snap. And man, they really had a tough time. They just didn't adjust well to it. Whatever I would say audibles are baked into the Georgia defense to attack motion or to defend motion. They just don't do it really well. And maybe it's just the leverage of the DBs. They don't necessarily defend it well. Either way, in the first half, not one target to motion. Not one damn target to motion. In the second half, he had 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. One was a touchdown to Isaiah Bond, remember the corn dog play, and one was a 24-yard reception by Matthew Golden. And that was on the first drive, by the way. Those were 2 on the first drive. So your biggest play, your biggest chunk yardage play on that first drive was a target to motion, and your touchdown on that drive was a target to motion. And they routed 12 personnel. Sark figured something out. It took him a little while, but he figured something out. And then you had I think a Blue had a 9-yard reception. Then when he was a target to motion. So I think that was something that probably Sark could have tried a little bit more in the first half that might have worked to spark the offense. But when your offensive line ain't blocking and your quarterback is, seeing ghosts and constantly under duress, it's tough for any concept to work. Once they settled down, went back into the locker room, you can tell Sark came up with a couple of concepts that were able to give them some juice in the offensively, but not enough. And they said they moved the ball. They were moving the ball on Georgia at times in the second half. And I think a couple of these concepts were big reasons why. Targets to motion, using a lot more 12 personnel. I thought they would go more empty. They did not. They had one of their interceptions was out of empty, unfortunately. The interception that was out of empty. That was an incompletion out of empty. That 21-yard run for Arch Manning was out of empty. So they didn't run as much as I thought. I thought they should have run it more. But like I said, when you're quarterbacks having another, bad game, or at least his worst game that he's had at Texas, and your offensive line has arguably their worst game in pass protection. I don't know what concepts or schemes could work. And Sark did say he threw out the game plan. Threw it out because they started so poorly on offense. He admitted that game plan wasn't going to work anyway. So he threw it out and had to start off from scratch in the game based on the way it was going because they were down 23-0 in the first half. So maybe he did have more empty on there. If the game went a little bit closer according to his plans, but I still think they should have threw out a little bit more empty. And for those who are like, oh, they can't do empty because Georgia would have been able to get to the quarterback too easy, I would just say this: sack rates actually drop out of empty formation. The last 3-4 years I've been tracking at Texas, they actually have lower sack rates out of empty formation because the ball's out so quickly, and there's no disguise. Right, Georgia was disguising a lot of things with their front, disguising a lot of things coverage. You can't disguise out of against empty. You have to get to your alignment assignment right away, and there's usually a default coverage that you have to go to automatically. And you're either going to blitz an empty formation or you're going to drop 8. So you almost force the hand of the defense. And I think it would have been something that would have helped out Texas in that situation too. But hey, Sark makes the big bucks, and he knows better than me. We come back. We'll have what the facts, what the stats on the other side right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, time for what the facts, what the stats right here on the Rodcast. How about this one? I tried to warn you guys. I tried to tell you about Patrick Mahomes as an underdog. It's just easy money. After their win over San Fran, which they were like a 1.5 point dog to San Fran, did not understand that. Patrick Mahomes moves to 11-3 straight up and 12-1-1 against the spread as an underdog. Best mark for any quarterback in the Super Bowl era. If he's an underdog, take Patrick Mahomes. First of all, always take Patrick Mahomes, but especially when he's an underdog, because that just don't happen a lot. Here's perspective on that stat. The rest of the NFL, 32% win percentage in games straight up as an underdog. Rest of the NFL quarterbacks, they're 32. All right, percent of their games they win straight up as an underdog since 2000. The dude is a special kind of freak. Mike Tomlin, how about this one? When he's an underdog, 26-3 against the spread. That's a 77% win percentage against the spread as a home dog. When he's a home underdog, man, he's the most profitable coach against the spread since 2000 as a home underdog. So just throwing it out there. All right, there you go. Some what the facts, what the stats. Oh, this is good news for Xavier Worthy. How about this one? Last week versus the 49ers for Kansas City, he was the first time all season that he was basically like the top receiver on first read target rate. He was 35% first read target rate. Travis Kelce was at 18%. That's good for him. Man, look at him. Yeah, I mean, he led the Chiefs. Actually, take it back. It's his second week because in week 5 he did it too. So in week 5 he had his first game where he led the team in first read target rate. He had 27%. Travis Kelce was at 23%. And in this past game, he was at 35%, and Travis Kelce was at 18%. So it's good for Xavier Worthy. It's now, I mean, what he's doing with that target rate and that target share. I haven't really been diving into that, but I will say that that's intentional and deliberate by Andy Reid, trying to get him more involved, trying to force the football to Xavier Worthy. And I think he's running fewer, basically go routes. When he first came, I mean, I watched him for a while. They were just running go routes with him. And it made sense because they had basically it's a pick your poison. It was either, are you going to put 8 in the box to stop Pacheco? Or are you going to put a safety over the top of Xavier Worthy? Because if you don't, we're just going to chunk it deep to the fastest man in the history of the NFL at the NFL Combine. Or are you going to double Travis Kelce? Or are you going to double Rashee Rice? Because mathematically it was an equation nobody could solve. Then they lost Rashee Rice. They lost Pacheco. And now it's like, I can solve that. Now I can do that calculation. I can solve that problem. I just got to double Kelce, and I got to put a man over the top of X-Man. And that's why the offense now has lost all explosivity. But at one point, it was a mathematical equation you just could not solve defensively. You couldn't double Rashee and Travis Kelce and have a safety over the top of the fastest human in combine history at the wide receiver position and put 8 in the box to stop the run game with Pacheco. You couldn't do it. So Kansas City could just have their way. Whatever you take away, they'd be like, all right, we'll just go the other way. Now that Kansas City offense, losing Rashee Rice, losing Pacheco, they don't really have those elements anymore. But Xavier Worthy, how about this? His go route rate in the first 6 weeks of the season, 34% of his routes were go routes. Week 7, 12%. His crosser route rate, in terms of him running crossing routes, he was at 19% in the first 6 weeks of the season. He was at 31% in week 7. So they're using him differently, and they're starting to build the passing game a little bit more around Xavier Worthy. So good. That's really good news for him, no doubt. All right, there you go. That's some what the facts, what the stats. I had a couple of Longhorn related stats I'll give to you, but we can save those when we're talking Texas, Georgia. How about this one? Real quick, Oklahoma just saw this. They just fired their offensive coordinator, Seth Luttrell. Oklahoma's a 20.5-point underdog versus Ole Miss this week. 20.5 points. They're almost a 21-point dog to Ole Miss. Ole Miss is not juggernaut. It's like they're playing Georgia. I mean, Ole Miss has been seen as a team that can be beaten. They got some issues. The Sooners haven't closed as a 20-point underdog since November 22nd of 1997. They were a 24-point dog to Texas Tech. How the hell did that happen? That would be a total of 348 games since Oklahoma has been an underdog of 20 points or more. Damn. 20.5 points to Ole Miss. That's an underdog. We'll see. We'll see if Oklahoma, because that would be historic. We'll see how that line ends up closing. There you go. Another factoid in what the stats. All right, we go to break here. We'll come back. We get into the game last night. We'll talk about the Monday Night Football game between the Ravens and the Bucks. We'll talk about the Ravens and Lamar Jackson. Right now, looking like he's on pace to looks like outperform his MVP campaign last season. We'll also talk about Texas versus Georgia. We'll hear from Steve Sarkisian talking about the Longhorns' first loss of the season, but also looking ahead to their upcoming opponent, Vanderbilt. And we'll also dive into some other NFL news, notes, and nuggets. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis and lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Coming back on the Horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a top of the charts Tuesday here on the Rodcast, and that's when my co-host, the Ideal Patrick Davis, plays jams that reach the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. He always does a great job with it, so we're appreciative of his talent and his effort, but also he hooks us up with the topic for the big fat poll of the day, and that is also posted at the Horns X account, at the Horn ATX. Patrick, what is the topic for the big fat poll of the day?
Big fat poll of the day today. How many more losses will Texas have in the regular season? Right now, 0 leading the way, 62%. So we're not at a full freak out yet by the fan base, but 25% saying 1%, 10% saying 2 more losses. So 1 more loss, 25%, 2 more losses, 10%, and 3% saying 3 more losses.
Wow. Yeah, I had them 11-1 to start the year. So at the beginning of the season, even though I did pick them to beat Georgia, I did. But I said they'd be 11-1 at the beginning of the year. I'll stick with that, 11-1. So their one loss. That's they won. I'll have them win the rest of the games, even though I think now some teams will try to replicate the blueprint that Georgia deployed and used and executed versus Texas. They just don't have the dogs, no pun intended. They don't have the dogs to do it. So I'm not too worried about Texas being exposed again in the way they were exposed versus Georgia. Not saying they won't get a tough game. Not saying they won't lose again. I mean, but the way Georgia beat them, I mean, that game could have been worse, guys. It could have been worse.
It could have been way worse.
Showed up. It could have been way. I mean, they had drops. I went back they had dropped interceptions. They had dropped like 4 picks.
Yeah.
Don't forget the interceptions they dropped. I love Quinn, but he threw a couple that was just like they just dropped them casually. It was like that could have been game changing again. And they dropped a lot of passes too offensively. And they catch half of the interceptions and half of the damn passes they dropped. That could also be game changing. So yeah, could have been worse for Texas. So but Georgia is the standard of college football, which we should all be ashamed of ourselves, or at least I should, for forgetting that in my preparation for it. They just hadn't looked like that all year. But that's what championship teams do with championship pedigree. We talk about it all the time, Patrick, flipping the switch.
Yep.
When you've done it for so long, right? What Georgia has, right? Last time they lost 2 games was 2020. And you get these teams on their dynastic. We talk about it, Kansas City. Yeah. They've been doing it all season long. Like, all right, let's fourth quarter, guys. Y'all ready? Let's flip this switch, man. Go win this game. They've been winning ugly with defense and ball control. Patrick Mahomes having his worst season ever, but does he know how to flip the switch when he needs to? Yep. I'll get you that 33-yard run you need right there. I'll get it. I'll make it happen. And great teams can flip the switch. Now, some teams, as we talked about, they think they can flip the switch, and then they get to that point, and then like the Astros, and they realize, oh, I flipped that switch, and there's no power. Yeah. Damn, nothing changed.
The bulb's busted.
Yeah, right. The bulb went out. What happened? Oh, man, it's been a while since we hadn't checked this light in a while. Yeah, I guess. We gotta check the wiring back here. I guess the switch ain't working, but that switch worked with Georgia. They flipped the switch on Texas. They flipped the switch, man. I hadn't seen that team on film all year, and I remember saying stupidly, coming out of my mouth, "This is not a Georgia defense to fear." I said that out loud. Somebody should replay that so I can hear how stupid I sound.
From what we had seen, it was.
That's what I said.
And from what we had seen, it wasn't. But it was. But what we'd seen, it wasn't. It was.
I will admit, hey, when I'm right, I like to pat myself on the back. When I'm wrong, I like to slap myself in the face and say, "What were you thinking? What the hell were you thinking?" That's the standard of college football, the best coach in college football. And I had Texas winning by, I think, like a touchdown, casually winning by a touchdown. Yeah. I mean? But like I say, they came into that game. Georgia had 5 takeaways on the season, guys. They came into that game 110th in takeaways. Yep. They weren't even taking the football away. And so I was like, oh, you don't need to feel this. Remember I said there's no real identity to the Georgia team because they didn't take the ball away like Oklahoma. Oklahoma was top 3 in takeaways, right? They weren't top 10 in sacks. They had 11 sacks on the season. They had 11 sacks on the season. They got 7 in that game. Mm-hmm. They were like 65th in sacks nationally. They weren't great there. Tackles for loss, they were like 55th. But in this game, 10 tackles for loss. They got 7 sacks, and they got 3 takeaways in the game. I mean, 4 takeaways. Sorry, lose track. You get my point. It's amazing. That is unbelievable. that they were able to flip the switch in that manner. And that's exactly what they did against Texas. So they were 64th in pass efficiency defense going into that game. Did that defense is like a 64th ranked pass efficiency defense?
No.
Texas had no passing game against that defense. We couldn't even, nobody can get open, and the quarterback didn't have time to identify anybody that was open. And when the quarterback did, he looked confused and indecisive about who to throw the football to when he did have time. It was all three levels. So like I said, it was a master class by Kirby Smart. And I don't think another team will be able to expose Texas like that.
No.
But you're going to see Georgia again. Y'all remember my prediction. You're going to see Georgia 4 to 5 times over the next 2 years. And that's the standard of college football right now. And if you want to be the standard of college football, which you are right now ascending toward, you want to beat them. Old Ric Flair, he said it best. To beat a man, you got to beat the man. You're going to have to beat that man. Just so you know. It ain't the last time you're going to see Georgia. If you're good enough, you should hope you get to see Georgia again. Because they're going to be in the playoffs making a run. And if you get to see them again, that means you're on the same track. But you're going to have to beat Georgia the next couple of years if you want to be the standard of college football. Just know that. Just know that. And if you want to recruit Atlanta, which is the Atlanta metro area, which is the most fertile recruiting ground on the planet for football talent. All right. Not just on the planet. No area in this country is producing NFL talent like the Atlanta metro area. If you want to be able to knock on doors in that area, in that city, all right, in that region, and say, we are now the standard of college football because we are better than Georgia. And you can't do that right now. So it's still a tough sell to walk into them households and go, hey, you should come to Texas over going to Georgia. It's like, why? Georgia's in my backyard of college football. That's what you want to say to Texas talent. We're the standard of college football, and we're in your backyard. We're University of Texas. Yeah. Don't you want to come here? What's the reason not to come here? And like I said, so to me, that's the ultimate, the macro takeaway for me. You want to see Georgia again. You better figure it out. And the good news is, if you're Georgia, you're probably just going to play Texas how you played them. You're going to set the same game plan because you could have beat them by 40. So you might as well just keep the same game plan. Why would you change your game plan if you're Georgia? Why would you change anything up? Why? Was there something that was exposed? Is there something in the game plan that didn't work versus Georgia? No, that game plan for Georgia was a masterclass. So they're going to come with the same game plan pretty much. That's the good news for you, Texas. That if you can solve the problems that they presented, you got a good chance to beat them the second time because it's hard to beat a team twice in the same season. We all know that. Texas, last time they played Oklahoma twice in the same season, hard to beat the same team twice. It just is. And the team that won usually is at a disadvantage the second time because why would you change up your game plan if you won, especially if you won in a way that Georgia did against Texas? So we shall see when they face Georgia again. I predicted 4 to 5 times over the next 2 years. That will be Texas ascending toward being that standard of college football, and to knock off the, right now the standard bearer, you want to knock off Georgia.
Yep.
And we couldn't do it. It's all right. And it's all right. We need to be humble. It'll happen. I have faith, but at least we know how far away we are. And, we're not as close as we thought. Nothing wrong with that. All right. We'll get into Texas, Georgia, of course. I know that was kind of a random Texas, Georgia rant. That was caused by the topic for the Big Fat Poll today. So go vote on that. How many more games in the regular season do you think Texas will lose? Also, we'll get to the Monday Night Football game last night. We'll talk about Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. One of my takes I had last week, I think now has even more credibility about Lamar Jackson and about the Ravens. So we'll get into that too and talk about them. Are they good enough to beat Kansas City? That's the only question the Ravens got to answer. All this other stuff is just, we've seen this before. We've seen Lamar Jackson have amazing, seasons. We've seen him do ridiculous, extraordinary things on the football field. We've seen all that before. The only question that really matters for Baltimore right now is does the Derrick Henry element make you now good enough to beat Kansas City? That's what it's really all about for them now, and get to a Super Bowl, because that's what's holding you back from getting to a Super Bowl. It's Kansas City. And right now, they look good enough to beat Kansas City. I don't know if they are, because I'm not betting. If they face Kansas City, even with this Kansas City team that we're seeing right now, and Patrick Mahomes having his worst season and Lamar Jackson having his best season, I still think I'm probably going to pick Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City in that matchup when they face.
Yeah.
I'm not picking against Patrick Mahomes.
It's hard to pick against him. Very hard
to pick against him, man. All right, we'll talk about the Ravens. We'll get into that and some other NFL news, notes, and nuggets. I got kind of a scary stat about the Texans game this past weekend to share with you guys. We'll get into some Texans talk, but first, let's get updated, educated, and informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. The NBA season tips off tonight with the Knicks taking on the Celtics and the Timberwolves facing the Lakers. Last season's NBA champions will see the first look of the new Knicks lineup with the additions of Mikal Bridges and Karl Anthony Towns, while the Timberwolves will have their new lineup with Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo taking on LeBron and the Lakers. And in the NFL, the Ravens outpaced the Buccaneers 41-31 with Lamar Jackson throwing for 5 touchdowns and Derrick Henry adding 169 yards on the ground on 15 carries. The Buccaneers fear they have lost Chris Godwin for the season with a dislocated ankle, while there is no timetable for a Mike Evans return, who also left the game with a hamstring injury. And the Arizona Cardinals hit a last-second field goal to top the Chargers 17-15 in a game where the Chargers could not get into the end zone, scoring all of their points off of 5 Cameron Dicker field goals. And that's your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines there. Let's talk about one of those headlines, the Ravens, with a win over the Bucs on Monday night. I said this last week. The only reason Lamar Jackson is right now, he's on track, I would say that. But right now, the only reason that he is not the MVP front runner or right now is not going to win another back-to-back MVP award, considering the kind of season he's having, because he's having a better start to this season than he did last season. And it's looking like, it's going to continue unless, knock on wood, something happens or he gets hurt, is because of fatigue, like just voter fatigue. He's won 2 MVP awards already. To give him a back-to-back MVP award, I think people would, they'd grow kind of disinterested with Lamar Jackson's just extraordinary feats and achievements on the football field. We just take it for granted because we've seen it so much now. Like, I'll give you a stat. I gave the stat earlier. Lamar Jackson, first player in NFL history to lead his team in rushing and passing in 5 straight years. It's never happened before. But he's done it 5 straight years. The only player that was close was Randall Cunningham. Remember Randall Cunningham back in the day? Dude who used to do it all. I mean, he was just a freakish athlete. He led the Eagles in rushing and in passing 4 straight years, 87, 88, 89, and 90. That's it, though. And nobody else is even close. Just those 2 guys. And Lamar Jackson, I just think we take for granted how freaky and just how dynamic he can be. So I think it's going to hurt him this season if, he's at the end of the season in that MVP race, which I think he will be in that conversation. The fatigue factor is going to hurt him. He and Jared Goff are right now probably are the AFC and the NFC kind of front runners for me, personally, just for me, because I know the odds may say something different in the MVP conversation. But Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, I do think right now they have a chance to beat Kansas City. Because right now I think a chance because the Derrick Henry factor. As I just pointed out, Lamar Jackson has led the Ravens in rushing in 5 straight years. This is the first year that he's not going to lead them in rushing because the leading rusher in the NFL is Derrick Henry. So he's leading the whole league in rushing. So this will be the first year since you got to go all the way back, it's like 2018 when was the last time, Lamar Jackson didn't lead the Ravens in rushing. Like, it's crazy. And I think it's a really good sign that he now is a complementary element of the running game and not the focal point of it. He's not the main course of the run game. He's not, so teams won't necessarily, they can't build their defensive game plan around stopping Lamar Jackson as the +1 to run the game or the dual threat. And he was still great, right? Even when teams were building their entire game plan to stop him. But now you got to build your game plan to stop Derrick Henry, who's a very unique weapon in the backfield. and now leading the NFL in rushing. So I think that to me is the new element that we haven't seen from a Lamar Jackson-led offense. And with him being just the mashed potatoes and gravy, right? He's the mac and cheese of the run game now, and not necessarily the fried chicken. He's not the pork chops. He's not the main course. I don't even know why those are the main courses that came to my head. I'm hungry already. It's early in the morning, but he's not the main course of the running game, and I think that's what makes him dangerous, man. So last year, you added the spread element, Todd Monken's basically air raid ish offense, and now you've added a downhill running threat with that air raid ish offense. So you spread teams out horizontally, formationally, and you stress them with formation, and now you're stressing them with personnel because you got to defend I think he is the most dynamic dual threat quarterback ever. I ain't gonna say he's the best. He ain't the best till he wins the Super Bowl. You can't be the best dual threat quarterback ever till you win a Super Bowl. That's why Steve Young's the greatest dual threat quarterback of all time. He is. And honestly, Russell Wilson's in that conversation too, because Russell Wilson's one of the only other dual threat quarterbacks to win a Super Bowl. There's not been really a lot of true dual threat quarterbacks to win a Super Bowl. I want to say that to rush for like at least 300 yards in a season as a running quarterback. Like that may be kind of the standard, but you just don't see a lot of running dual threat quarterbacks win Super Bowls. Those are only two, by my definition, that have done it. And Lamar Jackson's going to try to be the third. So to put himself, if he does win a Super Bowl, then he's the greatest dual threat quarterback of all time. You probably can already say that if you want to, by your own definition, but based on the MVPs, based on the stat I just gave you about leading your team in passing and rushing, which is just really like extraordinary. It's almost impossible to do in the modern age of the NFL and do it successfully. And yet the Ravens have been able to do that successfully, considering how unique of a talent that Lamar Jackson is. So I think the fatigue factor is going to hurt his MVP campaign. But, man, you're going to look at what he's doing this season. He's definitely having a better start to this season than last season. I think a big part of it is Derrick Henry. And one thing that's cool about Derrick Henry is he actually averages over 5 yards per carry in the first quarter and in the fourth quarter. Like, he's just as effective in the first as he is in the fourth with that type of physique, and with him being the load that he is and how it just wears down the defense. That's why he can average 5 yards like that when he's a little bit worn down, but the defense is even more tired and exhausted from having to tackle that dude. So this offense, man, it presents some very unique problems for defenses. With Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, I mean, have you had two more unique athletes at their position in the modern game?
So I will put out. So this is where we were talking about having the MVP and the Offensive Player of the Year on the same team.
On the same team, yeah.
So it's happened a bunch of times. It's the same player that they just give the same MVP and Offensive Player of the Year. It's happened 10 times the last 20 years. It's not rare at all to have the same one. Now there is 1 year that's close and it's different. And
when they had two different guys on the same team,
that the second place in the AP Offensive Player of the Year was on the same team as the winner of the Offensive Player of the Year and the MVP. You want to take a guess the last 20 years? What team that would be?
So they were second in the MVP.
So
voting,
the MVP was the Offensive Player of the Year. The MVP and Offensive Player of the Year, same guy.
Yeah.
The guy who's second in Offensive Player of the Year voting was on the same team as the MVP.
Oh, that is good. Oh.
And once you know it, it's obvious. And so that was what I thought of. I was like, I wonder if that's the one that I could find, but he did not win Offensive Player of the Year. Probably could have, but
damn, this is good. I should know this, huh? Is it Travis Kelce?
No. You go back a little bit further. I'll give you the year. I'll tell you the year. 2007.
Oh wow. I should know this, huh? Is it Randy Moss?
Brady or Moss. Brady won MVP and Offensive Player of the Year. Randy Moss was second. But if you look at how good they were that year, that's the one you go, right. No, that combination of guys, and that's who I would compare this to when you just put two guys together and it seems to just work flawlessly that they play together like that. That was when you put Brady with Moss, and it just for that season was just amazing.
Damn, that's good. That's good research. Yeah. That's good. You're right about that. That may be the only real comparison we can make here. So it's never happened that
no, I only went back 20 years, so I'll have to go back further. and look a little bit further and see if it's happened.
I bet it's well, at least in the last 20 years, that's still that's a good sample size. But yeah, I think this year they got a chance to do it. But I don't think Lamar Jackson will be the MVP again. I think they can give it to somebody else. They're going to give it to him. And Goff seems like a guy they can justify giving it to.
Yeah,
if they can justify anybody else, they're going to give it to them because it would be absurd to give him. I mean, he would have 3 MVPs before he's like, what, 28? Well, how old?
Yeah, I think he turns 28 in January, so he'd be 20. Yeah, he just turned 28.
That would be like that. Yeah,
still under 30. Yeah, I'd have 3 MVPs.
Yeah. They're not going to do that. I don't think the voters will do it. But maybe he might not give them a choice, guys.
I don't know if they'll do it for a guy who hasn't won a Super Bowl.
Yes, it's a good point. His resume in the playoffs is he can't get it done.
That's the thing is if he wins a Super Bowl, then it becomes easier to do because then you're like, well, no, now he's one of the greats. But without winning the Super Bowl, it's hard to put you in that conversation of one of the greats. And it always kind of has that hang. So you go, well, he's a 3-time MVP, but he couldn't get past Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes, man,
and really, he can't get past Mahomes and Spags, and
and Andy Reid,
yeah,
exactly, and Brett Veach, best head coach, best GM, best DC in the league, and best quarterback. I don't know how you beat that. I don't know how you beat best GM, best head coach, best offensive play caller, best defensive coordinator, and best quarterback. I don't know how any other team beats that. That's why everything else, and best D tackle now too. And Chris Jones, is there a better D tackle than Chris Jones?
I don't think so.
So best D tackle too, and best tight end, is Travis Kelce still the best tight end in our minds?
Yeah, I mean, who would be passing him so far?
I don't think so. Nobody in my mind. Not as a pass receiver.
I mean, I don't think there's any tight end that's blown it away this season. So
no. So I just don't. I don't know if any other team. Like Baltimore may be the team that if I can bet on any team to challenge Kansas City, it'd be.
I mean, right now that's the team because.
Yep.
I mean,
if the Lions hadn't lost Aiden Hutchinson, you'd be thinking them, but that's a big loss against. That's the guy you need. He was the leading. He had led the league in sacks. That's what you need against Patrick Mahomes. You need like 2 or 3 of those guys, and you just lost one.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of takes the Lions out of it for me. I'm like, I don't know. I don't like that. But anyway, let me give you a stat about the Ravens. This is how extraordinary that offense is right now. They were the first team in NFL history to outrush opponents by 100 yards or more in each of the first 4 games of the season. They were the first team to do it. They've now done it through 7 games. They've now done it. They are just dominant. And one of my favorite trends in the NFL, honestly, and it really is. It really does explain and I think track with something I've said about Lamar Jackson and how you need to have a better simulation in practice before you face Lamar Jackson. And if you don't, which most teams don't, who has a quarterback that can run a 4.3 and throw like Lamar Jackson? Nobody does, right? So if you don't have that in practice, in the game, you're going to be doomed. Like it's just going to take you too long to adapt and acclimate to that kind of speed at quarterback because nobody sees it. And Sean McVay said it once. He said it took our teams like a half to adapt to playing Lamar Jackson. That's why his NFC record is what it is. That he's 23-1 now straight up against the NFC. Because NFC team, if you don't see him if you see him twice a year, then number one, you do get a chance to actually adapt and acclimate to him. You know what the speed is going to be initially when you see him. Like, okay, all right, man, I got to adjust all of my angles. I got to adjust every damn thing. All right, when Lamar Jackson's playing quarterback. So the teams that get to see him more in the AFC, that's great because teams in the NFC, not only if you're in the division, obviously you see him twice a year, but if you're in the AFC, at least you get to see him potentially once every 2-3 years, whatever it may be. Also, if you're in the AFC, you're probably more likely to invest especially if you're playing him in a division, to invest in a quarterback on your roster, whether practice squad or whatever, developmental, that can give you a scout team look similar to what Lamar Jackson is going to throw at you in the game. So that you can at least be able and to practice against it and give your defense some type of look, some type of, simulation of what you're going to see in the game. I think it's important for teams to do it. I really do. I've been saying it for a while. Like if I was a GM in the NFL and looking at my schedule, I'd look at how many dual threat quarterbacks I play. Lamar Jackson obviously being the most dangerous and the most notable. And honestly, I would keep a guy on my roster that can give us a good scout team look of a quarterback that can move around, that can run around and make plays like dual threat quarterbacks. Now, of course, you got to emulate their traits and characteristics and their patterns of movement and as a quarterback. But still, if you don't got one of those on your roster, I think you're making a mistake. And that's why when he plays the NFC, they see him once every 4 years or whatever. They see him. They don't see him a lot, and those teams are usually shell shocked. They just can't handle Lamar Jackson. 23-1 against the NFC. That doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. His only loss is to Daniel freaking Jones.
I have now found you a actual pair of same team, one quarterback.
How far back?
99 and 2001. The same combo did it in 99 and 2001.
The same. Was it the Rams?
It's the Rams. Kurt Warner, Marshall Faulk.
Greatest show on turf.
Makes sense. Makes total sense on that one. But yeah, Kurt Warner, Marshall Faulk, 99 and 2001 did it.
Well, there you go then. So it's been like 25 years, around 20, 23 or 20. Okay, 23 years or so. Okay. All right. I think that sounds about right to me. I think this group could do it. And they played in the Super Bowl in two of those. They played in the Super Bowl.
It
was. I remember. Yeah, they played in two of those. I had to go back and check it. It was 01 and 99. But I know they played in two Super Bowls there and ended up losing one, obviously, to the Patriots. And that was the start of the Patriots. So that was 2000.
Yeah, they won in 2000 and 2020 and 2022. Is it two Rams Super Bowls that they won?
What? They won. Talking about the Kurt Warner ones.
Yeah, no. So they only won in 2000,
the first
right?
one.
Yeah.
Yes. No. And then the Patriots beat them the next year.
Yeah.
Yep. Right.
I think that's yes.
Yeah. All right. There you go. All right. So good stuff there. Good research, Patrick. That makes sense there. That it would be the greatest show on turf. And the last time you had an MVP and offensive player of the year on the same team. I think that the Ravens are trending that direction. We'll see. All right, we come back. We got Behind the Burnt Orange Curtain. We'll hear from Steve Sarkisian, talk about Texas, Georgia a little bit. We'll also get into some other news, notes, and nuggets from around the league and the sports world, all that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get to some Steve Sarkisian audio. He spoke to the media yesterday, his Monday media availability. And, of course, a lot of the conversation had to do with Quinn Ewers and his status with the team. As a matter of fact, yesterday there was a a fake news story that broke. 247 Sports was hacked. Their Instagram account was hacked. And they actually put out several different there were several different reports, folks that worked for 247 Sports, including my man Jeff Howe, that indicated that they were hacked, and the report that was posted, the fake news report that was posted via their Instagram account, claimed that Quinn Ewers was going to forego the rest of his eligibility and prepare for the NFL draft and not play the rest of the season and prepare for the draft. That is not true. That is fake news. And then I think minutes after they were hacked and it was posted, they deleted it, and then they put out a message saying that they were hacked, and that's the reason for it. So no truth to it at all. It has already been disputed by other sources and confirmed that Quinn Ewers is the starting quarterback of the Longhorns, and he will be the starting quarterback of the Longhorns, at least we believe, for the rest of the season. So there's no, I know that it blew up last night, but yeah, no need for Longhorns fans to worry about that or stress about it. All right, that was not addressed at the media availability, but I wanted to make sure that we addressed it because I know it was a big topic of conversation among Longhorn fans. From Sark talking about Quinn. He's talking about the struggles that Quinn has had in the last couple of weeks. Here is Sark talking about his starting quarterback and the obstacles that he's had to try to overcome with this regression that we've seen from him since that Oklahoma game.
Well, I think a couple things. I think Quinn definitely can play better. We got to continue to work his pocket presence and making sure that he's capitalizing on the premier looks when we get them, why we're calling plays and we get those shots to take them. But I also think we need to play better around him. You know, our offense isn't about one player playing well. It's about all 11 playing well. And I don't think we've been at our best from a totality standpoint. So yes, Quinn needs to play better, and I believe that he will. I thought he played a better second half. Again, the game was a little bit out of whack, but I think we need to be better around him as well. Up front, the run game, receivers creating separation, getting open, all that needs to improve.
Yep, I agree with Coach on that. After the rewatch, there's no doubt about it. The offense, his personnel around him, the offensive line, the skill position guys, they didn't help out Quinn. They didn't do him any favors. Here is Sark talking about Quinn, and Quinn being benched for the couple of drives to put Arch in there, and he later on put Quinn back in, and admitted in the post game, hey, Quinn's the starting quarterback. We just wanted Quinn to recalibrate and reset. Here is Sark talking about how Quinn reacted to being benched.
Well, I think it's him understanding that we have confidence and belief in him. Again, we were very clear of why we made that move at the end of the second quarter of him kind of recalibrating, him getting refocused, giving him a chance to get into the locker room so that we could visit. And again, I thought it was an effective move for him, for us as a team. But we got a ton of respect for Quinn, a ton of confidence in Quinn. I think he's going to come out and play really good football for us here the second half of the season.
Another, I guess, a theory as to why Quinn has started to regress for some has been maybe he's still hurt. Maybe he's still dealing with an injury of some kind, and that is starting to, affect his play on the field, and maybe he is overcompensating for it, whatever it may be. Sark was asked straight up, is Quinn still hurt? Here's what Sark had to say.
No, I don't think it's impacting him at all. I really think he's healthy and feels good about it. So is he 100%? I don't know. Is anybody on our team 100%, going into week 8? Probably not. Everybody's got something right now.
No, at this point in the season, are you hurt or are you injured? That's the question everybody's got to answer. If you're injured, you're hurting your team if you're out there. But if you're hurt, hey, man, you got to be able to go. Here's Sark when he's talking about the offensive line, because the offensive line didn't do Quinn any favors. Might have had their worst game as well since Sark and Kyle Flood have been here. And the offensive line got beat schematically. There was some breakdowns in pass protection. Also, some guys got beat one-on-ones. We hadn't seen Kelvin Banks actually lose a lot of one-on-one battles since he's been here at Texas, but he lost a few versus Georgia. Here's Sark talking about the offensive line and how much it needs to improve.
Yeah, it was kind of a few different things happened. The first sack, not the first sack, but the sack fumble on the corner blitz was a communication error at the line of scrimmage. Quinn thought he was protected on the backside. Clearly he wasn't. So for all the Monday morning quarterbacks who said Quinn was late with the ball, that was incorrect. All right. He thought he was protected and he wasn't. Okay. We have another one where we don't block a Mike linebacker coming off the edge. That was a running back issue. We have another one where a running back gets ran over through the A gap and we all want Quinn to step up, but the running back's on his back. He can't step up. And then Kelvin ends up giving up some pressure. We have another one where Cam loses his, kind of fundamental technique and gets wiped, and we give up a sack there. So it was kind of a variety of things. And that's my point. It's not this one thing. Hey, this guy just got his butt kicked. That's not really what happened. We dropped back 40 some odd times in the game. Right. And so one guy, when you play tackle, you may have 44 really good reps, but those two you got beat on, right, can rear their ugly head. And that's the life of being a tackle. That's the life of being a DB. You can play great all game and give up one deep ball, and boy, he didn't have a great game. And so we've got to find a level of consistency. We've got to find a level of balance. And then we need to play as a cohesive unit on the offensive side of the ball. And that starts up front for us.
I'm glad about the DB thing too, because that is the truth. You have 40, 50 great reps. Those 2 bad reps, man, they can really tank your stock with fans because they're not paying attention to the other 50 reps that you had. There were good plays where the quarterback didn't throw it, or it was unless you made a play on the ball. But if you never made a play on the ball and the quarterback just saw you were, you had your guy covered and went deeper into the progression, nobody gives you credit for that.
No. Just ask Blake Gideon about that.
Exactly. As Blake Gideon, he knows that all too well. All right, this is something that we've brought up on the show. Actually, can other teams that Texas has on the schedule, can they replicate what Georgia did? Schematically, I do think teams will try to take some of the concepts that were deployed successfully and executed successfully versus Texas, but they don't necessarily have the personnel. Is what that's what I not only what I think, but what I know. They don't have the personnel. They ain't got Mikael Williams. They ain't got they ain't got 5 stars all throughout their defense. But Sark was asked, I think it's a good question. Are you worried about other teams on the schedule taking that blueprint that Georgia had and applying it in their matchup? Here's what Sark had to say.
I think it's they have a couple really experienced players on that defense. Those 2 safeties have played a lot of football for them. They're really good players. And so when you talk about disguising, the more veteran, the more heady player you are, you're a little bit more comfortable disguising those things. They've got a wealth of experience at the line of scrimmage with guys that have played a ton of football. To go along with that defense is really talented. There's some NFL guys and some first round picks on that defense too. And so I think you tie it all together with really good defensive coaches. Sometimes that's hard to replicate all of what they did. Now I'm sure people can look at some of the things that they did. But it's hard to replicate some of it when maybe you just don't have the bullets in the gun, right? That Georgia has. And that's again, from the experience they have and also the talent level that they have.
All right. That's Sark talking about, that Georgia defense. I agree. I don't think teams are going to be able to replicate it. They can take some of it, but you just don't have the dogs. No pun intended there. Also, something that was a huge concern versus Bama was 3rd down, money downs, period. I think Texas ultimately ended up being 3 of 20 on 3rd and 4th downs in that game. I mean, that was one of the worst 3rd down performances we've seen from Texas, and didn't get their first 3rd down conversion, I want to say, until deep in the second half, like damn near the 4th quarter. So they got their first 3rd down conversion. Here is Sark talking about the 3rd down issues, the money down issues, and the running game. Because I gave you a stat about the running game. Georgia hadn't dominated a team like that in the running game since Samford, actually. Texas averaged 1.1 yards per rush against that Georgia defense. Here's Sark talking about the running game and those troublesome 3rd downs.
Honestly, I don't mind 3rd and medium. 3rd and 4 to 6. That's a decent sweet spot for us. I just didn't love our execution in some of those situations. I didn't Didn't love the timing with the routes with the quarterback. I didn't love some of the protection that we had for the quarterback. I didn't love some of the decision making by the quarterback. So it was all kind of, everybody kind of took their turns in those situations. Now, granted, I would like to run the football better than we did the other night. Again, it got away from us a little bit there as the game started to stretch and the lead started to stretch, and we got a little bit one-dimensional, and we tried to kind of use the run game as an offset to the pass game. But ideally, we have balance, and that balance usually comes at the end of the game. What does it look like from a balance standpoint? And I think so many people think balance is you're balanced all game long. You know, I've done a lot of my time is studying some of the best play callers in the sport. And Bill Walsh to me is an icon of play calling. And if you ever watch those old 49er teams with, Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, John Taylor, Roger Craig, Tom Rathman, a lot of times they came to throw and then that led to the run. And every game was a little bit different. And we try to do what's in our best interest to attack a team. But we just didn't get enough balance the other night at the end of the game. But I think a lot of that was a byproduct of the turnovers and the score going the way that it did. But we need to extend drives, and 2 of 15 obviously is unacceptable, especially for the standard around here. And so we've got to find ways to convert those makeable third downs. 3rd and 6 or less, we should be hitting that at a really high rate. 3rd and 7 plus, I get it is difficult, but 6 or less, we should be converting those at a high rate.
All right, yeah, and they'll definitely have to do that versus their next opponent, Vanderbilt. And Vanderbilt's, like I said, they're riding a high. This is actually one of the best moments, best seasons they've had as a program in the history of the Vanderbilt program. And a big part of that is Diego Pavia, the young quarterback who transferred into the program and helped them pull off the historic upset over Alabama. Here's Sark, who knows quarterbacks really well, talking about Diego Pavia, the Vanderbilt quarterback.
Well, I think, he's kind of that definition of grit. Grit is always something very hard to define. Sometimes it's easier to see. And he's a gritty player. He's tough. He finds a way to make plays, whether it's with his legs, with his arm, with his legs and his arm. He runs tough. He runs hard. He makes the throws when he needs to make them. And I think that he's infused that grit into their program, and that's to take nothing away from Coach Lee. I'm sure Clark Lee knew and identified that and saw that in him, but they have it. And I think it's a real credit to him, because I really think that he's, like I said, he's the straw that stirs the drink for them.
Yeah, and give Clark Lee credit, the coach from Vanderbilt, because he went out and got the player that was perfectly compatible with his program and with the offense. Matter of fact, I think they got the offensive coordinator to come along with him. So he had a plan, and the plan is paying huge dividends. Here's Sark talking about the head coach for Vanderbilt.
Ton of respect for Clark. He's a great defensive coach. He's a very good head coach. I mean, he really is extremely knowledgeable about the game and understanding the game. And I think at times I would say think somewhat like an offensive coach, in the discipline and the execution in which they operate, the foreshadowing of things that might come his way, and then how he's going to defend those things. Again, I think that he's, who he was at Notre Dame is a little bit different than who he is today defensively, not completely, but a little bit. And so that, shows the evolution, right? We're always trying to evolve as coaches. And so a ton of respect for him. Again, I always look forward to competing against really good coaches, because that's our challenge too. And as much as players love that opportunity to compete against the best at their position when they go against a guy, coaches aren't much different. And so I've got a ton of respect for Clark, the job he's doing there, but the job he's done over his career.
All right, let's start talking about the Longhorns' upcoming opponent, Vanderbilt. And we'll talk a little bit more about them, of course, tomorrow. But we're still doing some review of that Texas-Georgia matchup, which we'll do actually in Roger Rant. We'll do that when we dive into some more discussion next hour. But coming up next segment, we got Off the Record coming up. Off the Record, when we dive into some sports stories, sometimes some crazy stories beyond the sports world and more. We'll do that when we come back right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the Horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. A couple of items I want to get here. Some of these are close to home. So we know Texas was fined $250,000 for fans throwing stuff on the field. And we also know, based on the SEC guidelines, sportsmanship guidelines, down of like fan participation, fan conduct guidelines, Texas will use that all technology available, game film, security footage, whatever it is, and they are going to identify, or try their best to identify the students who threw stuff on the field, or obviously the fans who threw stuff on the field, and they will be prohibited from going to any Texas sporting events for the rest of the athletic and academic year. Well, Matthew McConaughey, who is the Minister of Culture, all right, he has also issued a statement about the incident. Even though it was an egregiously bad call. It was a horrible call. It's one of the worst calls I've ever seen. He said, Longhorn Nation, and specifically our DKR student section, MOC, Matt McConaughey, coming at you here. First off, you were electric Saturday night when we hosted Georgia. Bravo. Let's continue to bring it. Even though our horns didn't get the W, you created a measurable home field advantage. But let's get real about the bottle bombing, the field glitch we had. Not cool. Bogey move. Yeah, that call was BS, but we're better than that. Longhorn Nation knows how to show up, show out like no other, and still keep our class. So going forward, let's clean that kind of BS up and leave that behind us for good. We have to shake hands on that. Next up, November 9th, when the Gators come to town, let's make sure they feel the heat, can't hear the play calls, and burn their timeouts. But remember, nothing hits our field except that Texas fight. Till then, root hard and hook 'em McConaughey. There you go. Boom. All right. So, Minister of Culture giving his 2 cents about what happened. I will say this: it's bad optics, just because it seemed like at the time that it's the reason that the refs changed the call, even though now the SEC is claiming that is not the reason they changed the call. They were going to change the call anyway because it was a bad call. Is why they were going to change the call, not because of mob rule or because the tail wagged the dog there. Also, shout out to my man CB, who sent me the he sent me the Quinn Ewers Instagram post of a picture of President Trump with fake news on there. I think everybody knows what he's talking about.
Yes, that was the Quinn post yesterday. Yeah,
that's pretty damn good. I like that. So Quinn's response to the hacking of 247 Sports Instagram account, and that hacker had posted the message that Quinn was going to skip or forego the rest of his eligibility and start to prepare for the NFL draft. We will prepare for the NFL draft, but not yet. He's still preparing for Vanderbilt next week as the starting quarterback at Texas. But one day, that day will come where he'll have to prepare for the NFL draft, but not today. So that's fake news. So appreciate my man CB sending me that as well. And oh man, I wanted to get to this, but we'll get to it later because I think it's actually an actual substantive topic that we need to discuss. Tua is speaking out. Well, not speaking out, but he's speaking to the media after taking some time because he was dealing with the concussions and the head injury, and they expect him to play again this season. And he was asked about wearing the Guardian caps, which are the extra layer of protection on the helmet.
Last night.
Yes. They asked him about it, and he said no, he's not going to wear it. It's his personal decision. So, I mean, I would think you'd want every possible, technological advancement, whatever it may be, to safeguard you from more head injury. But it also it's a pride thing. It's a pride thing.
I get it, but it didn't even look that bad last night.
I don't think they look that bad. Yeah, I'm with you. It's definitely it's definitely them. They don't like the aesthetics of it. That's all it is.
Because I saw it with the lineman, I think like the right tackle or somebody for Tampa Bay. They basically said he missed 4 games with a concussion, so he put on a Guardian helmet when he came back. Like, I don't want to keep getting concussions. I'm going to extend my playing career. I'll extend the longevity of any of my I get it. I don't want to have more concussions, so I'll put on this cap. And it didn't look that bad. Like, I get it. It's weird. It's different. But you're like, if it can actually do what they're saying it does, why would you not want to, especially if you're Tua? I
understand guys who never had concussions. I get it. If you haven't had one, I get why you like, hey, you have to. But if you've had like multiple concussions already, and it may be something that ends your career and you still want to play, the Guardian cap seems like a no-brainer, no pun intended. But you get, that seems like, what are you doing here, man? Are you serious? Well, you know what? I'm going to send you that audio so we can play it next hour because we should talk about it. When I heard, I was like, "You got to be kidding me! Is he serious?" If I was Mike McDaniel, I'd be like, "No, of course you're wearing it. What are you talking about? You are wearing it. You're not going to see the field unless you put on the Guardian cap." And I know it's an individual player thing, so the coaches can't compel you to do it. But if I'm the NFL and if I'm Mike McDaniel, I'd be like, "No, man, I'm your coach and I'm recommending it. That's just part of it. That's crazy." Anyway, we'll get to that. It's I can't. First of all, we'll talk about it on the other side. We'll do that. I'll send Patrick the audio and we'll hear from Tua and then we'll break it down a little bit. All of that and more when we return right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. That's right. It is a top of the charts Tuesday. That's when my co-host, the Idealionaire, Patrick Davis, he plays jams that reached the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. So we always appreciate his effort and his creativity on all of our musically themed days of the week. But also we appreciate him coming up with the topic for the big fat poll of the day, and that is already posted at the Horn ATX on X. Patrick, what is the topic for the big fat poll of the day?
Topic for the big fat poll of the day: how many losses will Texas have in the rest of the regular season? So how many more losses will they have? We have 0% right now, coming in at 62%, 25% for one. You get 9% for two, and then 3% for three. Still a few people believe there will be 3 losses. But about 10% of your people believe that there will be 2 or 3 more losses in the season. That feels a little high. Feels a little high for me. Feels like a little bit of the panic button for being beat by a team that is really, really good in Georgia. Like
really good.
It's not quite the panic button of if we lost to Oklahoma, panic button's way different.
Agreed.
But this is a really, really good Georgia team. So I say it was not fun watching that game, but as also rewatching it, it's bad, but it's not the type of bad where you look at it and go, oh, we don't know how to play football and it's very easy to find a way to beat us. It's like, no, there's some teams that can do some things that are going to be problematic, but I overall, it was a lot of things that went wrong that Texas did not have answers for in a row.
Yep.
As opposed to 1 or 2 major weaknesses that everybody can key out on.
Yep, that's exactly right. Totally agree. When you start breaking it down, it's just Kirby Smart's game plan was masterful. Kirby Smart's considered the best coach in college football right now. And they had 2 NFL front 7 guys who had played their best games of the season. Mikael Williams, I mean, he had played 17 snaps, I believe, the previous 2 games. And we said on the show, we were like, you know what, if he plays and he's healthy, he could be a difference maker. But nothing on film led you to believe that he was going to play as much as he played versus Texas because he'd been dealing with injury. But now we know, they were planning, scheduling. All right, they had him on a pitch count, and you can tell they had the Texas game circled as a game where they wanted Mikael Williams to be back, or at least him to be as healthy as possible for that game. That's why he only played 17 snaps in the previous 2 games, which for Texas, hey, man, that's a compliment. They wanted their best defensive player potentially as healthy as possible so he can be an impact player versus you. And they were correct. He was an impact player with 2 sacks. And, Jalen Walker, I mean, that guy's going to play on Sundays. He's going to be a high draft pick too. That guy had 3 sacks. And that guy had 1.5 sacks the entire season going into that game. He had 1.5 sacks. So there was no reason for you to think he was going to be a war daddy in that game. There's no reason to think you didn't even know if Mikael Williams was going to play in that game. And I think he was started out playing in just passing situations. It turns out the whole damn game turned into a passing situation. So Mikael Williams was always out there. It would be different if you were running the ball successfully and, you were able to stay ahead of the chains. But because it was always 2nd and long, always 3rd and long, you saw a lot of Mikael Williams, unfortunately. So I'm with you. I think, and those 2 guys. But then, like I said, that was a schematic advantage. They outcoached Texas. So Sark can't hide from that, but they outplayed Texas. That was one-on-ones. Usually Texas wins a lot of their one-on-ones. These one-on-ones where Texas was just losing. Kelvin Banks. When it's got the best player on your team. Been the best player on your team, for a while. One of the best best players in the country in his position. When he's having an off night and a bad night, it's a bad night. Offense.
It's funny. It's like, and I get being on the road is technically it's a harder thing. There has to be something to be said where if everybody looks at it and just says, well, man, you're playing these other games on the road and the road's going to be there's something to be. You have to look at this as Texas not being fully ready for the punch in the mouth they were getting at the start of the game is partially due to the fact that it is at home where there is distractions and there's a lot of going on and it's your fan base and it's harder to get as amped up to go get into a fight when you're when you're the favorite, when everyone's picking you, when everyone's cheering for you. That when you go to Vanderbilt, when you go to Arkansas, and when you go to A&M, and everybody hates you and everyone's yelling at you, it's easier to get in a fight then. It's easier to play harder football. It's just So there's something to be said of there's kind of a different mindset you can go into when you're on the road, that it doesn't necessarily scare me the same concept of, oh, well, we're on the road, will be worse than we were at home. It was just how they came out in that game. They weren't ready to get punched in the face as fast as they were. And as soon as it happened, it took a long time for them to kind of regain. And that's part of the, setting Quinn down. Just being like, dude, you're taking a lot of shots right now. So
yeah,
we just got to get you to realize it's okay. And we come back out in this second half, we can go play football. And again, they won the second half. I mean, it wasn't pretty in the second half either, but they did win the second half.
That's fair. They did.
So you can say, out of everything you look out of this, I don't have as much doom and gloom. Yes, there's lots of problems that they exposed, but how many other people can expose those? And is it going to be as bad? I think this Texas team can come back and still perform at a very high level next week.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I do accept, but I when I went back and rewatched it, I gave more props to Georgia than I did have more criticism for Texas. It was more me looking at the scheme for Georgia. I understood why Quinn was holding on to the football. I get it. I saw that as, oh man, that guy's open. But Quinn's pre-snap, you got to understand, he's seeing a different picture pre-snap. He saw middle of the field closed pre-snap and thought to himself, okay, all right, I know exactly what's going to clear open here with this middle of the field being closed. And then, boom, he snaps the football and he looks up and middle of the field is open. He's like, oh, okay, that's a little bit different. All right, now I got to recalibrate. Okay, so actually now this progression should be, too late. You know what I mean? Like he saw something different pre-snap and post-snap consistently. And I'll just give Kirby Smart a ton of credit. If you want to take anything, if I'm a defensive coordinator watching, I can't do what Georgia did because I don't have the athletes to, but I can mix up my looks. I think the number one thing I would take out of it, if I'm going against Texas, I'm going to give Quinn a lot of different looks. That's what Oklahoma did. Brent Venables is known for that. That's Brent Venables' like calling card. Freaky, crazy, exotic, elaborate looks. Guys dropping from the second level back to the middle third. Guys dropping from the middle third down to the second level. All these very exotic looks to play mind games with quarterbacks. He's known for that. Kirby Smart isn't known for that as much, but Kirby Smart did a ton of it in this game. Ton of moving the safeties, pre-snap disguise, mixing up coverages, a different look pre-snap than post-snap, having a lot of stemming from on the defensive line, the front constantly moving and shifting. There was a lot of that. And I think if I'm taking something out of that I believe could give Texas some problems just against any team without the talent of Georgia, it would be, let's just throw a lot of different looks at Texas. Now, the problem is you don't have the bodies, the personnel, the dogs to hold up against the run the way Georgia did. See, they're moving around, they're shifting, they're mixing up coverages. You got the safeties rotating from single high, middle of the field closed to middle of the field open. They're stemming the defense front. They're doing a lot of movement, right? For most teams, they'll just put them out of position. And then Texas would just run downhill on them. But if you can just hold up against the run where Texas can't. Remember, Oklahoma was doing it at first, and then what happened? Texas started popping them runs on Oklahoma. Changed everything. They popped that split wide zone on them a couple of times for 30-some yard and a 46-yarder, scored a couple of touchdowns, and then Oklahoma had to adjust everything. And so if you're not Georgia and you can't stop the run, if you can't hold Texas to 1.1 yards per rush, which is what they held Texas to, and then earn the right to rush the passer. That's the key. See, because Sark's don't run the ball. He wants to run the ball. He wants to kind of keep some balance, especially when, just like he did against Oklahoma, when his quarterback's off, when the passing game it doesn't have rhythm, then he's going to kind of lean on the running game more. Well, against Georgia, you couldn't lean on the running game. You're only averaging 1.1 yards per rush. You lean on the running game versus Oklahoma, and he was able to run the football. Against Georgia, you weren't. And then they earned the right to be able to rush the passer. Because you can't run, then you got to throw. And then Georgia was just pinning their ears back. And they came with 3-man rushes, 4-man, 5-man blitz, all out zero blitz. You got fire zone blitzes. They showed it all. They showed they naked, against Texas. And Texas had a really tough time trying to get an exact, specific, bead on what Georgia was doing against them. They couldn't figure it out. And the quarterback can figure it out. I don't think Sark figured it out till the second half. We talked about that, and we'll talk about it in Rod's rant. That's when Sark started to figure out some things offensively that was working against Georgia, but it was a little too late, and it wasn't game changing enough for Sark to be able to totally flip the script on Georgia. But anyway, okay, we'll get to Texas Georgia discussion. I want to talk about. We'll get to that Tua audio here. I got a Texan stat I want to share with you about the Texans. We'll dive into that a little bit. And there's a rookie in the NFL, probably having the best rookie season that we've seen from a quarterback since CJ Stroud, but he's probably going to win Rookie of the Year, Jaden Daniels. There's a secret to his success that I wonder how common and widespread it is among big-time college football programs and big-time NFL programs. We'll talk about that coming up. But first, let's get the Horn headlines. So let's get educated, let's get updated, let's get informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. The NBA season tips off tonight with the Knicks taking on the Celtics and the Timberwolves facing the Lakers. Last season's NBA champions will see the first look of the new Knicks lineups with the additions of Mikal Bridges and Karl-Anthony Towns, while the Timberwolves will have their new lineup with Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo taking on LeBron and the Lakers. And in the NFL, the Ravens outpaced the Buccaneers 41-31 with Lamar Jackson throwing for 5 touchdowns and Derrick Henry adding 169 yards on the ground on 15 carries. The Buccaneers fear they may have lost Chris Godwin for the season with a dislocated ankle, while there is not a timetable for Mike Evans' return, who has also left the game with a hamstring injury. And the Arizona Cardinals hit a last-second field goal to top the Chargers 17-15 in a game where the Chargers could not get into the end zone, scoring all of their points off of 5 Cameron Dicker field goals. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. I appreciate those. Before we get to this Tua story, let me give you this Texan stat that I saw, which was kind of troubling. We talked about this yesterday with the Texans. They'd given up a lot of pressure. Their pressure rate against the Packers was absurd. They actually allowed, I believe it was a 48% pressure rate for CJ Stroud and the Texans. And that was the highest pressure rate of the season for the Texans. And I got this stat, and I didn't realize it. The Packers only blitzed 17% of the time. They only blitzed, so they were able to pressure CJ Stroud on basically close to half of his dropbacks while only blitzing 17 times. The Packers had been one of the league's worst defenses at generating pressure entering week 7. Actually, their pressure rates have actually been some of the lowest in the NFL. They were at 30% in week 2. They were at 33% in week 4, 34% in week 3. Yeah, 33% in week 4, 33% again in week 5. They were at 22% in week 6. And they got to 51% against the Texans, according to these fantasy stats. They said CJ Stroud's average time to throw was 3.24 seconds in week 7. That was the 4th highest of his career in terms of time to throw. He didn't even get over 100 yards passing in that game. And, man, the Packers, they really did show that you can get pressure on the Texans without necessarily having to blitz. And they are not an elite pressure generating unit, period. So that worries me for the Texans. And we'll get to it because DeMeco Ryans he's been asked about the O-line and their problems. He vows that they're going to get it fixed. They're going to figure out their offensive line issues. They better figure it out pretty quickly because I think a lot of teams in the NFL, when they play the Texans, they're going to be looking at that Green Bay recipe and trying to figure out how the hell Green Bay was able to apply so much pressure and blitz so few guys. Now, I think a lot of that helps when no Nico Collins is available for the Texans. That does help, no question about that. Nico Collins coming back, I think that'll remedy some of those issues just because, you'll have a more potent passing attack, period. But that's concerning for the Texans. Got to be able to – that offensive line is leaky in pass protection, and they have been, in my opinion, all season long. Pretty much they've been leaky in pass protection. So Texans fans, something to keep in mind there. Also, we want to get into this while we got some time. The Tua response. He was speaking to the media today, and they asked him about his concussions and him coming back, because Mike McDaniel says that they are planning on Tua coming back this season at some point. And Tua was asked about taking precautions and, wearing the Guardian cap, which is an extra added layer of protection on top of the helmet. The guys were wearing them in practice all the time, but this season they actually made it in the CBA. The NFL actually decided to make it a player decision that they could wear them in the games if they wanted an added layer of protection. You don't see it a lot, as Patrick mentioned. You saw a lineman with it yesterday in the Monday Night Football game. You don't see it a lot, but you're starting to see some players who decide to wear it, and it's not that obtrusive, in my opinion.
No,
but if you've had concussion issues and you've had multiple concussions already, it would seem to be a logical, cautionary step to try to safeguard you from more head injury.
And not only that, if you are somebody who is missing games because of concussions, wouldn't you try and do everything in your power to not miss more games? You don't have to believe in CTE, whether that's, you don't have to believe, you don't have in none of it. You are going to miss games because you have concussions. There's something that it's not like it's a godsend that if you wear this Guardian cap, you're not going to get them. That is not the case. There's different studies on it, and they depend on how the hit comes. It's different. For a lot of what Tua's doing, though, it's pretty effective because it is about how your head's hitting there, and his has been a lot of hitting the field, not so much of helmet-to-helmet contact as his head hitting the field. And so that kind of thing, you're reducing the impact on your helmet on your head. That's basically what the science shows. So you can't, unfortunately, for a lot of these things, you can't fully test everything in it because you can't just give people concussions. And you can't test it that way. You can't test for CTE until somebody's already passed on. So there's
postmortem.
Yeah. So there are hard things to test for, but what you can do is test the impact, and the impact is lessened by using one of the Guardian caps. And that's basically what the science is on it. So how much it actually prevents concussions and how much it'll stop, there's not definitive science on it. But at the same part, if you're Tua and you're going, no, I'm going to miss half a season every single season for the rest of my career, not even thinking about the long-term effects, I'm going to probably miss a minimum of 5 to 6 games every single season for the rest of my career, because every time I get hit, I'm going to hit my head because my neck's only getting weaker. It's not going to get stronger as this goes on. And I'm going to hit my head. So, you know what? I don't want to miss 5 to 6 games. I don't believe in CT. I'll be fine in 20 years. Whatever he wants to say about it to make himself sleep better at night, he can say. But if you want to miss games, then why would you not just go, I need to have anything you give me to help me not miss games?
Agreed. It's crazy. I guess I don't understand it either. Here's Tua when he was asked about it, and I think he's making a mistake, but he was asked about it, and he said it was a personal decision. Here's Tua.
Did that discussion come up in the last
Nope. Nope. None of that.
Would you wear a Guardian cap?
Nope.
Why?
Personal choice.
Are you, will this change your style of play, your decision to scramble or run or things like that?
It's got to be smart. That's it. It's got to be smart. My entire time playing football, I've been a competitor, and that, is or was sort of my edge when I would run from high school. Even in college, I would do the same thing. But it's a professional, setting. This is the professional level, the best of the best. You just can't be doing that. So definitely gotta stay more available for the team, for the organization, for our guys.
What caused?
Wow. He literally says at the same time, got to be smart. And I'm like, but you're not being smart. He's like, I just got to be smart. I'm like, no, but you're not being smart, though. You should wear the Guardian cap.
I got to be smart. And, when someone comes up and hits me and it's not a bad hit, but then I hit the ground. And like that's the concept, too. When everybody gets worried about players and they go, well, he's running. Well, normally when you're running forward, you have a pretty good chance to control your body. Mm-hmm. You can either initiate contact, which your contact won't be as bad. You can control where your head, if you keep your head up or go out, you can go out of balance, you can slide, you can try and do a lot of things to kind of protect yourself a little bit more. The problem is when you have a ball 5-10 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and all you're worried about is not getting that sack. Those are the plays where you get hurt, because then you're contorting your body to try and face downfield. You're trying to keep your arms up so you can throw, so your arms aren't down to brace yourself. You're doing everything to try and get a ball out so you don't take a sack. And that's when you fall flat on your back. Your neck snaps back. You hit your helmet on the field, and then your arms go up in a fencing position. And it happens over and over again. And you go, well, I can't run downfield anymore. People aren't taking your head off. They're just tackling you and your head's hitting the field. This is a major problem for people in concussion. I get it. And that's why where it's just, I mean, I get the competitor in him. I get all of that, but at what point are you lying to yourself over and over again? And someone has to step in and go, I get that the truth is not a convenient truth for you, that this is going to be a lifelong problem for you already. This is going to be a problem. But now, if you want to keep playing and you want to keep doing this, which I don't agree with anyway, at least take some precautions.
I think they're almost separate issues here. I really do. I think this is like ego and pride and him, and honestly, because it kind of reminds me of, there was a great story. It's not a great story, but it's a cool story about Wilt Chamberlain and his free throw shooting. And that Wilt Chamberlain has one of the greatest players of all time, but he's a lot of big man. He's a horrible free throw shooter. And that once he went to talk to Rick Barry, and Rick Barry convinced him to shoot like granny style, to do his free throws granny style. And he had actually a career high from the free throw line when he was doing these granny style underhand free throws, but he stopped doing it. And when they asked him why he stopped doing it, essentially he said, quote, I felt like a sissy shooting underhanded. He said, I know some of the best foul shooters in history shoot that way. He said, I just couldn't do it. Years later, Shaquille O'Neal basically said the same thing when they asked him about it. He said, that's a shot for sissies, and I wouldn't do it. My point is, I do think the Guardian Cap thing is more his ego about how he, it's how he wants to be tough and how he doesn't, and it may just be the look. I mean, some guys just don't like the way it looks, but for him, it almost feels like a crutch, and he doesn't want to have the crutch on the field. And I feel like it's a different issue than him and his relationship with the game. And the game is tough for anybody to give up. And the long-term effects, which he also should be thinking about, right? His quality of life as he gets older. I feel like this is, something else. This almost feels like a little more superficial for him. It seems like it, right? I don't know, for me, it feels like maybe another issue about him, having ego about not wanting to wear this crutch.
Yeah. No, it's
on the field.
Yeah. I got to be a leader. And as a leader, I have to show no weakness. And then if I show weakness, they'll come and you're like, it ain't showing.
Yeah. Yes. Agreed.
Just go.
Yeah. And it's like, no, just protect yourself, man.
Yeah.
Like right. To me, that's the best way you can be a leader, is to be available for your team and to protect yourself. For him not to wear, like I said, there's all type of, I don't know, there are types of issues at play here. And I think ultimately I'm with you. The idea that you had about him retiring and leading the NFL, or at least leading Team America in the flag football Olympic competition, is probably the best idea I think I've ever heard for Tua.
Yeah.
And I bet everybody would it's one of those things where everybody would endorse it. And I think the NFL would not let him, but they would champion him and promote him as the starting quarterback of Team USA or whatever.
Yeah. I think all that would be there, except for that Tua ain't going to do it.
No, based on his response about the Guardian Cap, there's no way he's going to do it.
No, we're more likely for the Tua lawsuit suing the NFL to let him play with concussions. I'll sign away my waivers to let me come back and play in the next 2 years when he has 6 more concussions. It's just like, they're not going to stop, because they haven't stopped. There's no reason for me to believe that they're going to stop.
They make you more susceptible. One concussion makes you more susceptible for another concussion.
And you're playing a violent sport. Your head's going to hit the ground. Your head's going to hit something. It has to happen in football. You can't play completely clean football if you're playing a full season.
Yeah. When I was shocked to hear that he's like, no, I'm not gonna wear it. Personal. I'm like, what's the personal reason? What is the personal reason? Like, seriously, what could it be personal about just not wanting to wear a
It was
Guardian
personal
cap?
choice, though. It was personal choice.
Personal choice, he said. All right,
personal choice.
But still,
no,
why is it a personal choice? How is it? I guess your personal choice, but you don't want to protect your brain. I don't get that. That's your personal choice is to not protect your brain from injury.
It's not the
personal
I don't
choice.
Care, but this is what I'm saying. It's not even protecting your brain. It's literally keeping you on the field. You get if your head hits that ground one more time, your season's over. So
but that's what I'm saying. Like it's over because of his brain injury.
I get that, but I'm saying simplified down because clearly he doesn't fully believe in any of that.
Does he wear like a sleeve on his leg from his other injuries? Like I'm serious. Has he worn like a brace before? Like that's basically all we're talking about a brace here. It's a brace. It's or any other type of sleeve you'd wear because it helps you whatever. It helps support, gives you support for whatever injury that may be. That's all it is. It's a sleeve, a brace for your brain. I don't understand how that's a personal. I gotta go look and see does he wear any other type of supportive accessory?
You better not know.
Yeah, exactly. If you wear anything now, be like, nope, you can't wear that, dude. Why would you wear a brace? That's stupid.
Why are you wearing cleats?
Why are you wearing an ankle? Yeah, why are you wearing an ankle brace? Or like why do you get your your ankles wrapped? Like to me, that's in the same category. So I don't get the personal decision thing. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. It's frustrating to keep up with Tua in this thing. I have no idea what Tua's thinking, but the Guardian cap thing make no sense. You should wear the Guardian cap, bro. Matter of fact, you should get an endorsement for Guardian caps. They should be like they should give you like an endorsement for Guardian caps, dude. You are the main demographic for Guardian caps. They want you. Like what the hell, man? All right. Anyway, that's a bad example he's setting for kids too. That's why I don't like it either. For youngsters, it's like, no, you ain't too tough. You ain't too. You're not too tough and you're not too manly to wear a Guardian cap. It's all good. You're going to play football. You already proved your manhood by going back out there. Everybody knows you got scones. Like you got testicular fortitude. Nobody's calling out you for being a coward. I almost feel like there's some of that connection.
No, look, believe me, it's every guy at some point too will have a point where he starts to have to wear comfortable or more reasonable shoes more often. When you realize
reasonable shoes.
When you just realize you're like, man, like my feet hurt so bad, and like I got plantar fasciitis, and you get all these things on your feet, and you're like, why? You're like, because I'm trying to look cool, and I'm trying to wear these sneakers. I'm trying to wear these, and they're meant for this, and they're not meant for what you're using them for. And you're standing on your feet all day, and you're working different jobs, and then your feet are messed up, and you have to go, oh, these New Balance ain't cool, but
they're comfortable.
I can walk.
They're comfortable.
I can walk around. I can do things. And I'll look like the old man, the middle-aged man wearing my New Balances because I can walk around now and not be in extreme pain. It's not the same thing because this will not be long-term lasting, but it's the same concept that a lot of guys have had to go through.
Yeah.
And it's not as cool, but who cares?
Because you, at one point you decided vanity is I don't give a damn about. Like I mean, vanity is not something I'm willing to sacrifice things for, and that's all it is. It's just vanity. It's you caring about how you look to other people, and I hope that ain't what this is about. The look of it. I'm hoping it's more about he thinks it's more of a crutch and a handicap or something like that, which also is still absurd. But he needs to wear the Guardian cap, dude. I don't even know. And if he gets another concussion without the Guardian cap, can you imagine then the ridicule and the criticism? Is like, dude, you had a choice to actually help to safeguard your brain against these injuries, and you chose not to. I got to go back and look at some Tua footage and see if he wore a brace of some kind.
And when we say not when, not if, when this happens.
I know. Yeah. No, it is. Yeah, I agree with you. Unfortunately, it is when it's going to happen for Tua. All right. So I'll go look for some Tua footage, see if I can find some of Tua wearing like a brace of any kind, something. If he does, then that means he's a bit of a hypocrite there because personal reasons for the Guardian cap, I don't know if that's going to suffice. All right, we'll come back. We'll get into Rod's rant on the other side. During Rod's rant, we'll talk about what I saw on my rewatch of the Texas-Georgia game. We'll get into that. Also, we'll talk a little bit more of some NFL news, notes, and nuggets. There's a story that I saw about Jaden Daniels that I want to share with you guys. A really phenomenal story about a technological advancement, really for him it's been, he says, for him, it's actually been one of the biggest reasons for his success. And I think it brings about the question, should other teams be utilizing this technology? We'll talk about that on the other side, right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis and Lifetime Horn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into some Texas football conversation. There'll be a smorgasbord here. I got a take about something I read about Jaden Daniels that I want to share with you guys too. I think it's pretty interesting. But let's talk about the Texas-Georgia game and what I saw on the rewatch, because Texas couldn't get anything going in the first half. That was pretty obvious. Georgia's game plan was, like pointed out, it was a masterclass in disguise, in mixing coverages, in exotic fronts. I mean, nothing matched the pre and the post snap diagnosis for Quinn. I mean, I think that was the whole point. I got a all 22. I'm gonna go watch today to confirm that, but it from what I watched just on the TV copy, you can tell that one of the themes in the game plan for Kirby Smart was, let's give Quinn a different look pre and post snap as much as we can, whether it's rolling our safeties from going from middle of the field closed to middle of the field open, whether going from too high to single high, whether that is stemming the defensive line in the front seven, bringing down linebackers and mugging B gaps, whether that be going with zero blitzes, exotic blitzes, or there's just showing 7 or showing 6 and dropping 4 and sending 3. I mean, there was a lot of variety in the game, a ton of variety in game plan. So going back and rewatching it, it was, to me, one of the reasons why Quinn struggled, because Quinn was processing more post snap than he usually does. Usually, you guys know, the ball's out. Ball's out, 2.1 seconds, 2.2 seconds. Boom. Quinn's a rhythm thrower. As long as the offense is in rhythm, ball's out of Quinn's hands rather quickly. And that's what, that's how the offense gets in the rhythm. And that's what Sark wants, right? Ball's out. Usually when Quinn's holding on to a ball a little bit longer, and that means things are starting to decay and deteriorate around him. And usually his footwork and some of that deteriorates too, right? His pocket presence starts to deteriorate a little bit as well. So what I noticed, because Sark has and I always describe it as a deception-based passing game. And it really is. I mean, the play action pass, the RPO game, the screen game, a lot of it is deception. Occupy your eyes, get you going in one direction, thinking about one threat, and then boom, Sark hits you with another element of the offense. A lot of it, 65-70% of the offense is deception-based passing game. One of the ways that really Kirby Smart countered that, it essentially had a disguise-based defense where everything was constantly moving and shifting in the back end, different looks. I mean, you take that cornerback blitz, by the way, which was a tendency breaker, because they didn't blitz the cornerback a lot on the film that I watched. So a bit of a tendency breaker there. But on the cornerback blitz, by the way, Sark said that was a breakdown in protection. That wasn't Quinn's fault. So Quinn wasn't responsible for that guy. It was a breakdown in protection on the backside. Cornerback comes clean. So that makes sense as to why Quinn thought. Remember I said, why is Quinn looking at Gunnar Helm? Why doesn't he just take the Silas Bowden slant that's wide open? Well, he didn't, because he thought he had more time. So their progression probably started with a deeper route and then probably came back to Silas Bowden. Like, we don't all know the progressions. I mean, we think we do, but only Sark knows the actual progression reads, all right, because they're the ones that have the plays. So maybe that's why he was looking at Gunnar Helm. Like, why the hell did you just throw it to Silas Bowden when he first came open? That is why. That could easily be the reason why. And because he thought he had protection on the backside, time for that route to clear, he did not end up getting sacked. But that's one of the things you realize when we're watching the film. Yes, Quinn had an off game and had a bad game, but there are several contributing factors to that, including his own teammates at times not executing well enough, and then that coming back to haunt them and to being a detriment to Quinn's performance. I'll give you another example. See, that was one, right? You have the strip sack fumble, somebody missed their block, or a pass protection breakdown, and then Quinn looks like, to us, like, Quinn didn't know what the hell he's doing, couldn't identify the blitz. Quinn slow with the football. Why isn't he throwing to the open guy? Why is he looking downfield to deeper routes? But it's because we're not on the inside. Another example is that interception by Quinn. It was a bad read. Quinn should have been able to diagnose that they were in just a cover 2. I think he thought they were in 2-man. They've been playing a lot of 2-man, which is man under. Basically, you have 2 deep safeties and you're playing man, but it's a very loose man. It's a very aggressive man, I should say. You can, in terms of, I can undercut all the routes, right? Because I got help over the top. So I can jump routes underneath, and usually you play it almost in a trail position. Some people call it 2 trail. I play it at trail because I'm basically going to take away anything underneath because I got help on the top, so I'm not worried about that. So they were playing some of that, and I think Quinn assumed that they were going to play that when he threw that pick, and they played kind of a regular cover 2, allowing that corner over there to jump that number 2 receivers route, which was Matthew Golden running that quick out route, and Gunnar Helm runs a clear out or just a simple 9 route, just a deep route, say fly route down the field. But in running that fly route, he does it casually. And he does it casually and allows that DB who's bailing, who's faking a bail coverage. All right. So he's going to disguise like he's bailing out to fool Quinn, and Quinn fell for it. He thought he was going to be responsible for Gunnar Helm in that zone coverage, but he didn't. He came off of Gunnar, eyes on the quarterback, jumped that number 2 out route there. And to me, that was, yes, Quinn's got to read that better. But if Gunnar Helm takes an aggressive angle toward that back shoulder of that defensive back and forces him to respect like his leverage, that DB will have to either go through Gunnar Helm or probably go around Gunnar Helm, taking a very dirty angle, not a clean angle to the football, and probably doesn't get there for the pick. Maybe gets his hands on it. You know what I mean? Maybe he gets there just to make the tackle on Matthew Golden for a short gain, but maybe it's not a pick. And it's a small thing, but I guarantee in the film session, the coach was like, hey, Gunnar, I need you to attack that DB, man. I need you to go attack him. Like, you didn't attack him. You just kind of casually ran by him. I need you to attack him. You attack him, and then he's going to have to respect your leverage and respect your positioning, and then he's either going to go around you to try to jump that number 2 route, all right? Or because you're attacking him, he is going to give up his actual real position, right? Which is that he was playing a cover 2 corner. He'll probably play you straight up and then try to get his hands on you to reroute you. But because you allowed that DB to kind of casually, be able to bail out and then take a clean angle to the football, it was a pick. Like I said, it's on Quinn, but his teammates could have really helped him out there. There was a lot of that going on. Just a small detail miss that became a huge detriment. It blew up and became a big issue when it was just a small detailed miss by 1 or 2 players. That happened a lot in the game, but you got to give Georgia credit for that. That's Texas not executing. So what I found out that Sark did in the second half that really gave a boost and some juice to the offense. One thing that he did, he started to rely more on 12 personnel situationally. Sark, for the most part, is an 11 personnel guy. He loves 11 personnel, 1 back, 1 tight end. Anytime he's in third, medium, third, and long, he throws out 11 personnel most of the time. And that's 50% of his offense. He's using 11 personnel, 1 back, 1 tight ends. Now that changes a little bit when, depending on the situation, depending on what time during the game. If it's late in the game and Texas has a lead, they're probably running 12 personnel to milk the clock and run the football. But what I've noticed this season, you saw it again in this game, particularly one of the adjustments for Sark was he is something about how 12 personnel adds another, capable blocker potentially in the running game, or adds maybe another gap to defend in the running game. He likes 12 personnel as a kind of a run game booster. And I think against Georgia, he liked it because it added insulation to the pass protection. Either way, you saw something that is somewhat uncommon in a Sark offense. You saw the most explosive plays coming out of 12 personnel. Remember in the first half, you only had one explosive play, really. That was that Arch Manning run for 20-something yards. Pretty much that's your only explosive play you had on offense. And then the second half, you started to see some explosive plays. Now you got some explosive plays out of 11. You had a 17-yard touchdown out of Jaden Blue, that Texas route. Matthew Golden had that 19-yarder. Gunnar Helm had a 15-yarder. But when I looked at all the explosive plays out of 12, you had Matthew Golden had that 24-yarder. Matthew Golden had a 34-yard. You had a 10-yard run by a running back out of. You had a 23-yard pass out of 12 personnel. So 12 personnel had more success getting chunk yardage plays versus Georgia in the second half. That's why you started out in 12 personnel. So maybe it's the way the defense has to respect the balance you have in that offense, because you could be just as formidable running the football as you could passing the football, because you got Gunnar Helm at 1 tight end, especially if Jaden Blue's in the backfield. We know what a threat he is, receiving out of the backfield. So maybe matchup wise, it helps you. I'm not really sure, but it is a change for Sark to lean on 12 personnel when you're down 3 touchdowns in a game, or when you're leading with the pass, which Texas was, because they couldn't run the football and they were down by 3 touchdowns. And yet now he leaned on 12 personnel. And Juan Davis is essentially a check down option. Juan Davis doesn't even run, routes downfield vertically. He's not targeted running routes downfield vertically. He's much more of a check down option. So even that is even more, I think, I think it's more intriguing and more compelling to me that he loves 12, even with Juan Davis as not a liability, but he's not necessarily a true receiving threat for you. And you would thought last year that Sark would have ran more 12 if he liked Gunnar Helm as much as, Gunnar Helm. He likes Gunnar Helm this year, and we've seen Gunnar Helm thrive in this offense. And you had JT Sanders last year. You thought last year you'd have been running more 12, but he didn't. Last year you had more variety with pony package and 6-0 line package, and you had 12 personnel, your regular 12 personnel, but you also had your Big 11, your Big 12 packages. Seems like this year you had your Red Cat packages. You've had less variety in the offense, but definitely you've seen an increased frequency of 12 personnel in critical situations, like third down, when Texas this is the only time they had to try to make a comeback, obviously, this season. But even this game, I was surprised. I thought, he'd be throwing out 11 personnel because he knows they got to throw the football. And it was 12 personnel where he had most of his success moving the football. And I think that's what he was leaning on later in the game. One other thing, before we get to break here, that I think was big schematic adjustment for Texas, targets to motion. I said before that Texas-Georgia game that Georgia was vulnerable to targets to motion. I started in the Mississippi State game, and I told you guys on the preview, if I'm Texas, I would have 7, 8 targets to motion already baked into the game plan. They didn't have any in the first half of that game versus Georgia, but in the second half, you had 4 targets to motion total. You had 2 of them on that first drive where you scored your first touchdown of the game. As a matter of fact, your touchdown play was corn dog to Isaiah Bond. That was a target to motion in the game. So a lot of your big plays, you had a 24-yarder end up being a target to motion on that first drive. So they leaned on 12 personnel on that first touchdown drive their adjustments after halftime. And they also threw in a lot of targets to motion. You can make the argument earlier in the game if they had done that probably would have had a little bit more success. But when your O-line's not blocking well and your quarterback's not having a good game, I don't know if any concept's going to be effective, but I would have ran more targets to motion. Also, I think they wanted to run more empty. They ran some empty, but remember, I gave you the numbers, and Alabama was just a disaster. Georgia was just a disaster versus Alabama when Alabama was running empty formation. I think they would have had it in the game plan. Remember, Sark said they threw out the initial game plan when Georgia got up on them so bad. They threw out the initial game plan. So it's possible empty formation was in the initial game plan for Georgia, and then Sark had to adjust on the fly, and it just was not a part of the schematic adjustments they were making. All right, let's get to the break. We'll come back and play Who Said That. That's when Patrick plays pieces of audio from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world, and based on the context clues or familiarity of the voice, you have to identify who said that. We'll play it when we come back right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a top of the charts Tuesday. That's when my co-host Patrick Davis plays jams that reach the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. We appreciate him hooking us up on a top of the charts Tuesday. He also hooks us up with the topic for the big fat poll of the day. You can go check that out. That is already posted at the Horn ATX on X. And he simply wants to know, how many more losses do you think the Longhorns have left on the schedule? 0, 1, 2, or 3. You can go vote there. Most of you, of course, voting for 0 losses left on the schedule for Texas. Certainly, that's where I am. Got the Longhorns at 11-1. All right, time to play Who Said That? That's when Patrick plays pieces of audio from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world, and based on the context clues or familiarity of the voice, you have to identify and recall who said that.
What I'll say about that, good question. What I'll say about that is champions never have a clean face. Muhammad Ali never walked out of a fight looking all pretty faced. He always had a bump or a bruise on his face. He always had a bloody nose or a black eye. But everybody knows Muhammad Ali was one of the best fighters to ever walk on this planet. And so to be a champion, you're going to get knocked in the mouth a couple of times. How are you going to respond? How are you going to stand up? Coach Sark said it this morning. I'd rather get knocked out round 6 and get up and win in round 12 than get knocked out in round 12. So that's all I'll say to that question.
There you go. That's Taft Daddy. Taft Daddy. I like that too, man. You'd rather get knocked out in round 6 than get knocked out in round 12. Round 12, you get knocked out, it's over. That's all she wrote.
Yep.
You're done, son. Round 6, got time to recover.
Yeah, that's a knockdown instead of a knockout. So you get back up. I mean, they talked about a lot in the presser too about last season. You lost to Oklahoma, and everyone was hit the panic button. Then everybody freaked out. Oh no, season's over, and they went on and played in the college football playoffs last season. So,
yep, agreed. Yeah, I think you could make you lost to the top 5 team, and you lost to the standard of college football right now. So, yes. There's no shame in that, but you got to get better, because I think that the Longhorn players will be the first one to tell you. And they played arguably a lot of guys played their worst game.
Yes.
On offense, and special teams. But defensively, Longhorns, man, they look like they're championship level defense. Offensively, Texas got some work to do. All right. Thank you for that, Patrick.
Just
Appreciate you.
Always remember, you played your worst game of the season and you lost by 10 points to one of the best teams in the last 20 years. It's a dynasty. It's not the end of the world. Yeah.
The sky is not falling. Ladies and gentlemen, the sky is not falling at all. And it's a playoff this year. It'd be different if it wasn't a playoff either. Like a 12-team playoff. Even a 14-team playoff, but you got a 12-team playoff.
Yeah.
You just got to be good enough to make the playoff, man. You make the playoff and then, keep getting better every week. Hey, man, if you're Texas, that's really all you can ask for. So hopefully we'll be talking about the Longhorns and their championship hopes. We'll be getting into that tomorrow, because we'll be talking about their upcoming game versus Vanderbilt. You cannot slip up versus Vanderbilt. That is not a pushover. All right. Thank you, Patrick, for all you do. Remember, the revolution will not be televised. We'll talk about it right here on the Rodcast. We love you guys. We mean that. Take care of yourselves, but more importantly, take care of each other. Until next time, hook 'em and peace.